Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. Episode 359, we take a look at all the news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot Segulin, and the Duke of You Know. On this episode, we are taking an in-depth look at all the news coming out of the San Diego Comic-Con. What we did is we went panel by panel, and we picked out some of our favorite news bits, shared our own reactions to it, and hopefully this will be a fun episode for those of you that have been kind of geeking out over all the news that comes out of that con. This is one of my favorite times of the year. Mainly on our show, we focus on the cover-to-cover aspect of talking about comics and geeking out, but it's always fun to do an episode every so often to just talk about news, because we get excited for this kind of stuff, because it's the stuff we're going to be reading in the coming year. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, if you haven't had a chance to order, check out the DC Villains July Bundle. This is leading into that Forever Evil and includes Forever Evil number 1. This is 53 titles, and it's regularly $211.47. The discount is 50% off at $105.73. If you're one of those people that are kind of like, I'd like to get, these are a lot of titles that I'm not reading right now, but because it's a special Villains Month, I'd like to get all of these single issues. This is a great way to do it on a budget. And being that it's so close to the end of the month when I'm recording this, I want to remind you that if it gets close to the end of the month and they've moved on to the new list, be sure to email them, because they will add on items that you haven't ordered. So be sure to let them know if you want to add this on. It's a great way to get all of these issues on a budget, because that gets very expensive very fast, and DCB Service is your way to save some money on those comics. Over at InStockTrades.com, they're running amazing specials. They have this 45% off special running right now. It's the New Year's resolution special that they keep running specials throughout the year. So I encourage you to bookmark their site, check them out for the new specials. But not only do they have all of these DC titles set at 45% off, they have a lot of, 50% off. Fairest, for example, is one of those series that I'm really digging. And Volume 2, The Hidden Kingdom, is out. It collects issues 8 to 14. This is a $14.99 trade paperback regularly. It's 50% off, only $7.49. Now, if you have, a list of titles that you've been wanting to grab in trade paperback, and you're like, Vertigo for me is one of those lines where if it's a series that maybe I didn't have room to fit into my budget initially, I know with Vertigo they're going to collect them, and it's a great opportunity for me to, if there's a lot of buzz behind it, to grab onto that series and read it in trade format. I usually end up reading it in trade, and then I switch to single issues, because then, if I get hooked into a series, I want it monthly. But that's the way I handle it. But some of you might be trade-only collectors, and InStockTrades.com is a terrific site to go to. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping, which is a great way to save money. So I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Oh, James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. Especially, we do a little bit of in-depth into Trinity Wars. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
Jim, we don't get a chance to do this very often on the show. We tend to focus more on talking about the actual comics, but it's always fun when San Diego hits to talk about the upcoming news. And the big one that was mind-blowingly cool, we knew that there was a Man of Steel 2 being pumped out the window. But who knew that Man of Steel 2 was actually going to be Superman-Batman, or Batman-Superman, however you want to look at it, with Goyer and Snyder helming it, and Nolan and his wife as executive producers. I like that they brought in this thing from Dark Knight Returns. I want you to remember, Clark, in all the years to come, in all your private moments, in all the years to come, my hand at your throat. I want you to remember the one man who beat you. That kind of stuff is really, really cool. I actually want to quickly shout out the site DC Comics News, because for the San Diego stuff, that site was like incredibly well organized on all of the San Diego material. So we're going to be doing a lot of our reactions to the news. Obviously, we'll share some of the news along the way that we noticed and that we spotlighted, but that site just is a wealth of information, and kudos to them. They're friends of the show, and it's just a wonderful site to navigate if you haven't been there before.
Yeah, even I can navigate it, and I'm an idiot when it comes to this stuff. So it's this. Yeah, I'm glad we're giving them a shout out, because really they saved me on finding the information, because I was trying to figure out this and that, like But so definitely outstanding, and they get a from the sensei.
The one thing that I really liked is that they pull their information from a lot of different sources, and they reference everything. So it's a really professional site, and I really appreciate that. So it was really cool to kind of see where they got everything and they pulled it together. So back to the big news of the film. I did not see that coming.
Well, actually, I did see it coming, because they consulted me on it, and I gave them the go ahead for it. So, I couldn't tell you before, because I was, it was a secrecy and confidentiality and all that whatnot. But
So what do you think?
Oh God, I'm excited. One, you got some great writers handling it. Snyder and Goyer, they know the characters. They're fans of the genre. We've seen great stuff from them, so I'm not worried about what we're going to get for them. This is more of the excitement as to what we're going to get. Are we going, which Batman? Are they going to give us a new origin? Are they just going to assume everybody knows who Batman is? Or are they going to keep him more in the mystery? Keep him in the shadows, where this guy shows up to take Superman down? Because you think about the end of Superman, there was massive destruction in Metropolis. Mm-hmm. Superman killed, Zod. So you have this person with the power of a god who took a life. Now, granted, we know it tore him up. We know he had no choice. But for the outside party, maybe they don't know. So maybe Batman is sitting in his cave getting ready, going, hey, it's time. I got to step up now. There's this guy. I got to take him down. And in the process, he learns what kind of man Clark is. So I'm expecting a good fight sequence initially from them, Bruce realizing the kind of man Clark is, and then a team up against some other foe, preferably in my book, Luthor. But you never know what they're going to throw at us.
Would it be Luthor directly, or maybe something that Luthor has engineered? Because I'm always a fan of the times where Luthor's kind of the behind-the-scenes man that they can never really pin down. So I'm a fan of either choice. If you put Luthor in one of those, super suits that he puts on from time to time, his suit of armor or stuff like that, great, go ahead and do that. But I don't mind if he's behind the scenes manipulating another foe that the two of them have to face, or manipulating them to fight each other so he can kind of do his own thing as well. I don't really care which route they're going, and like what you said, I'm with you. Amen. I'm a fan of the fact that there's a lot of different routes they can go with this. You made mention of should they do an origin again or not. I think the way that they handled Superman's origin was a great way to do it, where they did these flashback sequences, assuming that people understand the basic premise of Superman, but saying, we're going to give you that in this story as well. But what we're going to do is do these flashbacks that appeal to modern day, and let you know a little bit more emotionally where the character's coming from, what drives his motivations now from his past, instead of just going chronologically. I think if they do anything with Batman with that, I could see them doing like flashback sequences in a similar fashion, where we get to see what's motivating Batman's maybe reason for standing against Clark, if that's the case, or maybe reason for relating to Clark. So I don't have a problem with them doing an origin again in that way. I think it always works in the comics, too, where we get these newer stories that will... in Batman, yes, his origin's been told, but there's constant referencing to what happened to his parents and his childhood and stuff like that in modern-day comics, not just when they're telling an origin story. I'm a fan if they do it that way. I don't think we need a straight start-to-finish Batman origin again, though. We just had it so recently and so well done, there's really no point, other than to use flashback sequences like they did to further the character. And that's really what I want to see from it.
Yeah, amen. I'm completely concurring with on that one. I think they could very easily do flashback sequencing a little bit here, a little bit there. We know non-comic book fans, anybody who would want to see a Batman movie knows the basic stuff. They'd be comfortable enough where if you throw it in, a couple flashbacks here, a couple flashbacks there, everything would flow through, and they wouldn't need to do a complete retelling of the story. And I'm just... When I say I want Luthor involved, I would my personal preference on any Luthor story is the first movie is him being the puppet master. Mm-hmm. The next movie with him is him actually in the body armor. I would love to see Luthor playing the master manipulator, either doing some little fancy work on Bruce or maybe doing another villain where he's getting him to do all his dirty work and Luthor's hands are clean. And I would say it would take the combined work of Batman and Superman to identify, okay, Lex Luthor is the real evil behind this plan. I think that would be a great way for the movie to end with those two coming together saying, okay, there's a greater evil here. This is the true evil we have to face. And then in Superman Man of Steel 3, it would be Bruce and Clark against Luthor and another, or just against Luthor. Definitely there's a lot of options they can go with this.
Now, let's talk about some of the other news, because I wonder if this plays into your thinking at all. The Hollywood Reporter added that there's tentative plans for a Flash movie in 2016, followed by a Justice League movie in 2017. Now, those are tentative plans. As we well know, there's been a lot of tentative plans for various superhero movies, and a Wonder Woman movie's been brought up again recently as well. And these are all, anytime these things are brought up, Batman, Superman's a go.
Yeah. Those
other three mentions are ones that are works in progress. They haven't been 100% put through the whole process yet. It's a dead ringer that they want a Justice League movie. We're going to see one. Do you see what happens in this Superman-Batman movie leading more to a Man of Steel 3 or to a Justice League movie? Because Snyder, when you see interviews with him, he seems to be thinking more Superman, more Superman, more Superman before we get to Justice League. And I'm fine with that. You know, as far as build that franchise up and then lead to a Justice League movie when it makes sense, where there's a script and a direction that makes sense for it, because it's been in development hell. I want to see a Justice League movie. Please don't get me wrong, anybody listening here. I want it done right, though. I want it to feel like what Avengers did. Avengers felt very satisfying to me. It really felt like, wow, this was built to, everybody involved understood it, understood what it meant to be a part of Avengers, and I think the general public knew the characters. I don't think that DC has to go that same route. And I know that there's a lot of talk on the internet where people are saying, why don't they just follow the Marvel model? I don't know that necessarily is going to work, because you run into a danger if you follow that too closely. You don't want to come off as Marvel light. You know, and that you got to be careful with, because they nailed it. I mean, they really did. I think you want to make sure that you come off as being DC and Warner and really strong and delivering really good movies. I don't think when people watch Batman Begins and that whole Nolan trilogy that you sit there and go, wow, Marvel should have really gone that route, because it doesn't fit. It fit that character, that theme. And I think you say the same thing when you watch Iron Man. You know, look at that and go, wow, Batman should have done that. It just doesn't, you know, those movies are crafted to those characters. So I want to see a Justice League movie that doesn't necessarily follow the Avengers model. I don't want it to look like Marvel Light. I want it to feel strongly like a really good Justice League movie. Would you like to see, after Man of Steel 2, another Man of Steel? Or would you like to see that lead to Justice League? Do you have a preference there, or do you just not care? Or, you know, I mean, and I don't mean when I say just not care that you don't care, but I mean, like, as far as do you really have a preference?
Well, actually, I'm pretty much open for what they're going to give me, and as I said, I'm very confident and comfortable with this creative team behind it. So this is one of those things where I'm going to sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, because I'm confident we're going to get something amazing. Now, me personally, if they said, okay, Jim, you're in charge of this, how do you want to handle it? I would go with a Man of Steel 3. And within that 3, I would introduce the concept of the Trinity. I would use that for the way to bring in Wonder Woman. So I would have Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman in Man of 3. Man of Steel 3. And you can have the Flash movie on the side, maybe even use another character in with the Flash, say, for example, Green Lantern. And then after you get those movies, you pull in a Justice League movie where you have the 3 established from the Warner Universe, the 2 established in the other movies, pull everybody together for this massive, event.
Yeah, and I would be fine if they do it that way, too. I don't know that every character needs, and this isn't disputing you, I would love to see those movies. So everything you just said, I'm like, wow, that'd be really cool. I'd see that. I don't think they have to follow one set path. To me, it's one of the things you said before is how I feel all of these projects should be handled. You mentioned the confidence you have in this team. I want any film that's developed moving forward to have teams that you have confidence in. You know, I mean, it's like, so, you know, if they do a Flash movie next, cool, as long as they've got this type of caliber of team, this type of caliber of story behind it. That's what I want. I want it big. I want it to be something that people are going to be talking about and debating afterwards. This Man of Steel movie made people very passionate. You know, and people were arguing, you know, there's some people who didn't like it the way that you and I did, and that's fine, but they were passionate about it. You know, even the things that they didn't like, they were passionate about. Because it's a movie that told a big story that really has a lot of emotional resonance. The Flash movie needs to have that, because the Flash's world is very cool. It would be very easy to, if you've got the right script and the right director and the right actor involved, you could really deliver a very cool Flash movie. I want to see that. I don't care if it comes before or after Justice League. It looks like tentatively they're looking at it first. Cool. You know, and I liked your idea of Man of Steel 3 featuring Wonder Woman. I don't know that necessarily you have to do team-up movies in order to introduce everybody, but it certainly would be a cool way to do it if you're having trouble getting a script together. You know, as far as saying, like, wow, I can't get a solo script that's compelling. Well, what happens if you put her with some more established characters? I don't know. Batman and Superman versus the Amazons?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could do something like that, and wow, would that be neat? You know, the same way Aquaman could be brought in. You know, I mean, you could do all kinds of cool stuff like that. To a certain extent, though, I also feel that Aquaman and Wonder Woman have rich enough worlds that I'd love to see them in solo films. You know, because I just think the amazing things you could do with them. I like that they're carefully planning this out. I like that there's tentative plans for Flash and Justice League. Keep it tentative until you got the right film. Batman, Superman rolling out. I did not see that coming, and I guess because of all the Justice League talk, I really didn't see that coming. But it looks like all the cast is back from Man of Steel. The surviving cast, I should say, is back from Man of Steel. And bringing them in and having Batman's world brought into it, I think is just a great direction. It was, to me, the absolute coolest news that you could have, because it was a genuine surprise. That was not the way I expected this to go, because Justice League's been talked about so much.
Oh, God, yeah. And with me, and, you know, one of the reasons I think about doing, I would want to see Man of Steel 3 with the Trinity is you think about how Hawkeye and Black Widow got introduced in the Marvel Universe. Yeah. You know, they were supporting characters in other movies, and, you know, they're just as important, just as cool, and they're just as developed as the characters who had their own individual movies. So it's something that I think they could very easily do and very comfortably do with characters like Wonder Woman or Aquaman or The Flash, Green Lantern, any of the characters that they want to bring in. You could bring in a mix of movies, and this could be the DC style. This could be the DC flow. This could be how DC does their movies, where you have the Marvel model here and then you got your DC model here. I think it definitely could work, and the main thing we always keep talking about is, as long as they got the right people on it, as long as they have the people who are passionate about it. And right now we've seen their passion. They have passionate creators. They've got people who, you know, this isn't, you can tell, you know, they're fans of the genre. They're fans of these characters. These characters are sacred to them. They're not just going to throw out any old story. Oh, let's just get it done. No, they're craftsmen. They're, you know, professionals. It's a really cool thing to see, and an excitement.
Well, see, going off of what you're saying, to me, that you could do something where Wonder Woman's introduced in a cameo.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could do things like that. Or Barry Allen, like, for example, The Flash. The accident that causes him to turn into The Flash is the direct result of, you know, something that happened in the world, you know, some storm that happened in the world due to a battle that Superman and Batman were involved in. So maybe we only see the accident happen to Barry the way we traditionally have seen it, you know, where it's the mixture of the chemicals and the lightning and all that kind of stuff that turn him into the Flash. But maybe at the end of the film, there's that quick little thing at the end, you know, in the credits where he zooms off.
Yeah.
You know, and we see him speed up. We don't actually see the Flash. We just see Barry use his powers for the first time. I don't know. I see. There's a lot of different ways they could do it, and I'm not set on one. I'm pretty open-minded to that. I just want it delivered well in a way that is tried and true to, I think, the core values of the character. I don't mind if they play around with things for film purposes. That's fine with me. Let's talk. Can we talk about Arrow a little bit, kind of organically into this discussion?
Oh,
because
sure.
it's another character that, the season 1 was, to me, one of the absolute best seasons of a superhero show in a long time. I would be hard-pressed right now to think of a full season that moved at the pace that Arrow did. I just really am a huge fan of this show. It's actually been one of those shows, I've rewatched a few of the episodes, and I don't normally do this since the season's been over, just because I wanted to go back and I'm kind of need an Arrow fix. I think this concept of Green Arrow is great. This season, we're going to be getting a Black Canary introduction. There's another actress that's going to be coming in that's going to be playing Black Canary. But she's not going to be Dinah Drake, and it's supposed to be kind of the origin or the introduction of the Black Canary concept. So I'm kind of unclear how that's going to work, but it does leave open the idea that Laurel Lance could become Black Canary down the road. I like the way that this universe is working with Arrow, that it's a very early introduction of Green Arrow, an early introduction of what will be Black Canary, and I hope this show has a nice long longevity where they can just kind of keep playing these things out gradually, because everything feels real time, and I'm really digging that concept to the whole thing.
Well, when I first saw this, I was like, ooh, this is kind of interesting because of the fact that they're introducing a different character who, I was always thinking the whole time, I'm thinking, okay, Laurel Lynn should become Black Canary, because we've already seen her throw down a little bit. We've seen she's a cop's daughter. She's got some training, and I can see eventually down the line Ollie working with her. And I had all these images, this training sequences and whatnot in my head, and then I get this thrown at me. I'm like, ooh, okay, well, I was wrong about that. Let's see where this goes. And just the fact that we're going to have Black Canary, but it's not going to be Laurel. It's not. It's going to be somebody else.
Did you read the interview with the producer of the show, though, saying though that this doesn't mean that Laurel won't be Black Canary down the road?
Exactly. That's we have this thing, and then as it's going on, who knows where it's going to play into, where this is going to go. So once again, for me, this has opened up the excitement, again, for a show that I was already excited about. We're adding new characters. We're bringing in new people. We're going to start seeing the evolution of the hero. He's not going to be the vigilante. He's not going to be the Hood. He's going to start going by a different name. He's going to start being a different person. And we saw the glimpses. We saw the birth of the hero, the concept that the Hood could be this hero of Star City. He could be what they need, or Starling City. He could be a beyond vigilante. And we're going to start seeing that grow further in season 2. We're going to see this this new character come in. We're going to see Roy Harper, character is going to develop some more. I'm very, very excited to see where this stuff goes, and I was already pumped for season 2. At the end of season 1, I was like, yes, this is awesome, man, this is great. I was sad to see characters die, but just the way it ended with that power, and I was like, oh, how's Ollie going to handle it? How's Laurel going to handle it? There's so many questions, and there's even more stuff coming down the line. This is definitely, Arrow is looking up for me for season 2.
And they announced that they're going to be doing Bronze Tiger and a version of Brother Blood, which I think is really cool. And the one, the actors playing the character Brother Blood was in True Blood, and I love the character there. So I'm just really excited to kind of see the gradual expansion of this universe. I just think the show has been fantastic. I've been really enjoying it. It returns October 9th, and I can't be more excited for a television show to come back. It was just a very satisfying first season for me on all levels, and the fact that they're looking on just taking that further, that foundation they've developed to the next level, and just continuing on with it, to me is great. I like the fact that there was a big story told through the whole season, but there was a lot of smaller stories going on as well. And yet we still don't totally know everything about the island.
Right. There's still more to come from that, and there's still more training, more secrets and surprises coming from the island. And that's, I think, one of the neat thing, that we have all these multiple fronts on Arrow. It's not just about this vigilante. It's not just about him shooting arrows into the bad guys on the list. There's a bigger story. Then even when you start understanding the bigger story, guess what? There's little hidden stuff in that bigger story, so it's even deeper than what you know. And I think that, for me, has been one of the biggest strengths on on Arrow, and it's one of the reasons I've recommended it to people who, whether they're reading comic books or not, whether they're just fans of action shows, action movies. This is the kind of story for them because you get some cool action stuff, you get some character development, you get some plots, you get some twists, turns, and whatnot. This has been one of those wonderful TV shows, and I'm so excited that there's more energy coming down the line for season 2.
I want to talk about the direct to animated features, direct to DVD, direct to digital, Blu-ray animated features. Flashpoint Paradox was just released, which was incredible. I really dug it. And they said that this is going to be kind of the shift from like the previous universe into doing now more features involving the New 52. But they're also going to be doing some stuff like, watch, they're doing this Flashpoint Paradox that just released. The next one's going to be Justice League War. And that's going to be in the winter. And it's going to be doing that New 52 Justice League reboot, which I'm really excited for to be collected as an animated feature. Like, we're going to get to finally see, and they're doing all new voice talent for all the heroes, to kind of show that these are new iterations of the classic characters. And I'm really excited for that. It was a bonus feature on Flashpoint Paradox. They had the trailer, and it was cool to see the voice talent and how excited they were to be playing the various characters that are involved. So I'm very into that. Next summer, that's followed up with Son of Batman, which is based on Morrison's Batman and Son storyline.
Yeah, it was. I haven't had a chance to watch the Paradox yet, so I didn't see the sneak peek and the previews and whatnot. But when I heard about the Son of Batman, I thought that was going to be a neat story. And then saw there was an interview with Grant Morrison where he kind of talked about it. And you think about, we had the Superman, All-Star Superman was turned into a movie, which was great. So this is going to be another one of those. The story kind of fits, and I'm curious to see where the tweaks and where the twists and turns are going to happen, because they can't follow it image for image, panel for panel. They got to modify it for the movie. And this is, again, I want to know where they're going to go with this. Are they going to kill off Damian in the middle at the end of the movie? Or is it going to go that far? Or are they going to only take it up to a point where Damian starts being Robin and maybe the second movie will be his death? It's
the Batman and Sons storyline, which actually was a collected graphic novel. That was the initial introduction.
Okay.
So obviously the film's nowhere going to be long enough for that. So this will be the introduction of Damian, which leads to an interesting, we'll have to talk later. Actually, this seems like an interesting time to do this. Let me talk about one more piece of news, and then I want to jump back to that if we could.
Sure.
This fall, the other film we're going to see is Batman Assault on Arkham, which will be set in the video game universe of the recent Arkham City video game, the one Arkham Origins we're going to be getting now, and then Arkham Asylum, the first one of the batch. It's going to be set in that universe, and it's going to have new animation, not game footage, which is cool. I'm a fan of that. I don't need the game footage collected on DVD. I've got the game. I want to see new animation. So I don't know if it's going to be the same story or if it's going to be a new story set in that universe. I don't care. I just think it's great that that's going into a different medium. But let's jump back to that now, because I think we can turn this into a quick discussion about Batman comics in general right now. So in Batman continuity right now, you mentioned Damian's death, and obviously that's something that's a big event. We're currently without a Robin. How do you want to see that play out? We've seen some interesting characters who've been brought in who could possibly be Robin. Do you want him Robin free? Do you want him to have a Robin? Do you want Damian back? Do you want one of the two girls that have been put on the table lately? What do you want from a Robin in the future? Jim, where do you want that to go?
Man, it's a toughie. You know what? This is one of those things where I absolutely love Damian and wish the character was back, but I don't want him to come back. It's the stories we are getting have been absolutely wonderful, and I love the little monster. Yeah, if they were to bring him back, I would not complain at all, just because he's such a great character. But the fact that he is dead and gone, and just the way way Bruce has to continue on, why he's dealing with his grief, way the other members of the Bat family are dealing with their grief, I don't want to see Damian come back, because this has been some great stories. But Batman needs a Robin. And I think as he keeps going into the darkness, as he keeps, separating himself, he needs to have somebody there with him. He needs to have that light to keep him going. And just for all the reasons that they always say there has to be a Robin, I think we need another Robin. And I'm all for a female Robin. They've, introduced a couple potential, Robins. They would work great. If they wanted to bring Stephanie Brown into the mix, I'd be happy with her. Cassandra Cain. I think he needs a Robin. He needs, and I think a female Robin would be a wonderful touch. And we got some great characters. I don't want to see Tim Drake put on the Robin costume. He's Red Robin. Obviously, there's no way Dick Grayson will be, anything other than Nightwing. And I think he's strong on his own. He should be as on his own. And we've seen Jason Todd as on his own. I think, we bring in another character, and there've already been some groundwork laid. If I have to pick between the females, I'm going to go. Probably would lead with Carrie Kelly coming in and being the new Robin, especially because there is already that personal connection. There is already that beginning of the growth of Bruce kind of accepting her in the life, accepting her as part of the family, where he's Alfred hired her, but Bruce is tolerating her being there, and
really. Well, I mean, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, but what about the Harper Row stories that have already been told in the Batman books? Right. I think a lot of what you're saying about Carrie is 110% true, but I think in the field can also be applied to Harper Row. It's funny how, as Bruce Wayne, he's had the interactions with Carrie Kelly you're mentioning, but as Batman, he's had those interactions with Harper Row. So I think everything you just said you can cut and paste and copy and plop over to Batman having those interactions with Harper Row, which to me leaves me with an interesting question as far as I'm not sure which one of the two I would want more, because I've really loved the development of both characters. So I think that was not, and I apologize for cutting you. I think what you're saying is 110% true, but I think they can be equally applied. And it's funny how the duality of Batman, he really has two different characters he's working with right now, depending on whether he's in or out of the costume in the same fashion. So I'm having a lot of trouble, which is why I posed it.
Oh, here's why I don't say on Harper. Now, let me just make sure everybody realize up front, if Harper becomes the new Robin, I'd be happy with it for everything you said. She is field tested. She has proven she's got Bruce's back. But the reason I go more with Carrie over her is because Harper is, like with Bruce, she is operating in the shadows. I think Robin needs to operate in the light. I think Robin needs to be bright, lively, and that energetic and that glowing energy that Carrie has. Harper doesn't have it. If anything, I would say Harper would become Oracle, or would become a support character, or she'd be a member of Batman Inc. She'd be part of the crew, and she'd be in there, but she wouldn't be a Robin. She would be support. She would be tactical support. She would be that person that, Bruce would, could eventually give her a communicator, say, okay, here's what I need. This, done. I'm on it, Bat, boom, and she would be part of the team helping out, but I don't see her as Robin. I don't see that boom, that energy. And again, if they were to make her, I'd be happy with it, because she's a great character, and Batman does have that rapport with her, does have a level of trust with her. He's more concerned about her safety, is why he doesn't want her in the mix. But again, it's one of those, dances where either character would go and I'd be happy with it.
But he's also given her back her equipment.
Yeah.
Because he's felt like she earned it. And that little nod there, it's funny how I'll throw it out there. I love Carrie Kelly. And there's that geeky part of me that's like, it'd be really cool to see Carrie Kelly be... I think we're in different places on this one. And I agree with everything you said about Carrie. But I think the part of me that's leaning towards Harper is saying to himself, well, I love the idea of Carrie finally being brought into continuity as Robin. But there's that other part of me that likes this new character that we're seeing begin her development. And I like that she's kind of growing beyond her edict. Like, she was originally created by Snyder to not be this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like she might grow beyond that in a way that's unexpected. And there's something that I do like about that. About, this character kind of going beyond her station and to become something more. It's kind of what Stephanie Brown did. Stephanie Brown was never crafted to be a Robin, and she did eventually become one. And I quite liked her as Robin. So Harper's kind of growing in that category for me, but I'm also like you, where I'll say that with putting a caution on it to say I would have no issue if it winds up to be Gary Kelly or somebody else. Flipping back to what you said in the beginning, I think he does need a Robin, and I like what they're doing with the exploration right now. I think we're getting some incredible stories right now. And we're seeing Bruce, I like that we're seeing Bruce go through a process of healing that doesn't involve a Robin healing him. It involves all of his support people, the people that are around him connecting with them, even with what happened in the recent Joker story, still hanging over his head. He's still remaking those connections, even in the recent Catwoman issue. You're seeing more and more of Bruce connecting with people and going through healing due to his son. And we haven't even had the end of Batman Inc. yet.
Yeah.
So, which Morrison says he thinks is going to tick off a lot of people, which makes me really excited to read it. But I don't know. I'm very torn. I just thought it was an interesting debate to throw out there, and we're in two different places on it. Sort of.
It's funny because we're both saying the exact same thing. Where I completely see what you're saying and I agree with you, but my preference is this. Mm-hmm. In everything you said about why Harper should get the job, I agree with you. Yeah, those are very valid arguments, and one of the reasons why I wouldn't have an issue with her becoming it. It's just that personal preference. It's like Coke and Pepsi. Some people like Coke, some people like Pepsi. There's no real right or wrong answer. Both are good. Just you have your personal preferences.
Before we jump into, I'd like to talk about the Green Lantern panel, but before we jump into that, I would like to discuss really quick recent DC animated television shows. Have you had a chance to watch Beware the Batman at all?
No, I haven't had a chance to. I've got the one episode recorded on my DVR. I haven't been able to watch it because I've been fighting illness this past weekend.
So there's been two of that, and then the Teen Titans Go television shows out as well, which is a comedy, more of a comedy. It's a lot like the shorts that were. It's kind of a little bit of the classic Teen Titans Go, but leans more towards the comedy of the shorts that have been in the DC Nation, short subjects that went in between the two most recent animated shows. So Beware the Batman was real interesting in the first episode because I didn't know what to expect. You get this 3D animated Batman show, and it takes place very early in Batman's career. He's really just starting out. He's just donned the costume, and I really like this exploration because I don't remember it being something that was explored in we got the year one animated feature, but I don't remember this being explored on this level ever in an animated series where you're getting a full season right now devoted towards the starting of Batman. This is before he's got a relationship with Gordon. Gordon doesn't know what to make of him yet. And, I'm going to stay very general with this, other than to say I really liked it. It's kind of a hybrid of current continuity Batman with stuff that was going on in the Earth 1. Because Alfred skews a little bit more towards the Earth 1 Alfred than he does the current continuity Alfred. And he's, more active like in the training role, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And he's bald in this one, and he takes kind of more that role on it. And I'm not going to go any further than that because you haven't watched it yet, other than to say we've got some great villains in there like Professor Pig, Magpie. So they're going into some, they're pulling out some, instead of the traditional ones that we're normally used to seeing, we're pulling out some of the wacky villains that we haven't seen too much in animation or at all in animation.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's a really good show. And I like it at the start so far. It's got a good feel to it. It's different than, it's not trying to be Batman the Animated Series. It's not trying to be the Batman. Both of which were great. I loved both of those. And it's this is something new and fresh, and it feels great, and yet it feels very Batman. I liked the second episode even more than the first, because I think by the second episode I had a feel and a handle on the direction of it, and I walked into the second episode I think with kind of like having what kind of Batman world is this taken care of now, and being able to jump into the second episode and just kind of really enjoy it from start to finish without kind of having any of my baggage as far as, do I like this take? I really dug the second episode of the series. So it's off to a good start, and I hope that people are watching it. I hope it's building a more casual audience base of people maybe who've gone to the films, a younger crowd as well. who maybe hasn't had a chance to get exposed to Batman, I think it's got a little something for everybody. It's definitely not just a quote-unquote kiddie cartoon. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I like all ages features as well. There's a maturity to it, while at the same time not going too far. And it's dark. I mean, it's definitely got a dark tone to it. But it's accessible. So I don't know. I would love people to call in and tell me what you think of that. And I like Teen Titans Go. I think the stories are great. It's definitely more of a comedy, but at the same time, you're seeing the characters. They're it's stuff that you've seen in Teen Titans animation. I was a fan of the shorts in DC Nation, so the idea that this expanded into a more feature-filled cartoon really worked for me. So I'm anxious. You haven't had a chance to see that yet either, have you?
Right. No, I haven't.
So when you get a chance to see those, let's follow up on them. But I'm glad. I guess I'm really glad to see more DC animation. I miss both of the shows that were replaced, Young Justice and Green Lantern, the animated series. I thought both of those were amazing. I'm just glad that they weren't ended and we didn't have more DC animation, if that makes sense. The greedy part of me would have liked those to stay and get these new features. We didn't get that, but I'm glad we've got something in its place. And I hope these are successful and that we get more animated options out of DC Warner. Because, these are really good shows, and I would love to see these be successful and spawn more opportunities to explore DC's characters in animation. Because I think the only way to really get people aware of all of these characters is not to just focus on one area. You want to go video games, you want to go film, you want to go animation, you want to go live action. You want these characters all over the place, because we've become very much a multimedia society. And you want the comics and everything. This is a great way to just kind of immerse people into getting to know these characters. You've got this Injustice Gods Among Us that was released that was incredibly successful as a fighting game. That had just a plethora of DC characters. Those are names that are becoming more and more familiar to an audience maybe who wasn't aware of them before but heard the positive buzz of it as a fighting game. I think that's great. Then we've got an all-ages game coming out in the fall. Actually in September, this Scribblenauts Unlimited, it's DC, it's going to be a DC version of it, where, you can now create your own hero and go through an all-ages fun game. I'm playing Scribblenauts right now, and I really like it. It's not a DC-related one, but it's Warner's original Scribblenauts game, and I really like the premise of the game. You take a notebook in that game, and you solve puzzles by, in your notebook, magically writing down words, and those things will appear. So like if I want to climb up a tree, in my notebook I type ladder, and it scribbles the ladder on there, and you can actually utilize it. Then you can delete it later. Mm-hmm. And it's a great way to navigate. Now what they're doing is they're taking and modifying this game and putting it in a DC world. So I don't know how it's going to play, but I'm really anxious to see it. I got to see, it was Jim Lee and Jeff Johns were making their own character avatars in it, using the character editor. Yeah. And the two of them were kind of meeting up for the first time in the game. And it was cool to see them create their own heroes. So I want to see how that gameplay mechanic from the original Scribblenauts applies to a DC Comics world. But they basically said there's going to be so many different DC characters in there. There's a lot of crazy unknown ones. And go to, if you go to the DC Comics website, that's one of the videos that's up there. That DCComics.com, they had the San Diego ones, because I was looking between that DC Comics news site and DCComics.com, and they had this gameplay video with Jeff Johns and Jim Lee. So it's a cool way to go and see that, so I encourage people to do it. But I'm excited for that. But to me, back to my original point, I think for these properties nowadays to get an attach rate, they got to be all over the place, because that's how people are used to digesting these characters now. Characters in general. They don't just stay in their one set area. They expand out all over the place. So I'm glad to see that Warner's taking more of an interest in doing that with the DC characters and making careful decisions with it. So I'm excited for that.
Oh, God, yeah. And, it's, you think about it, both of us, we had some of the biggest influences on our early, with the superhero genre, wasn't just comic books. It was cartoons or the live, the Batman. the campy 60s Batman that we didn't know was campy and we didn't know was satire. We thought, oh, okay, this is a Batman TV show. Or the Spider-Man, Spider-Man and his friends, that I used to watch when, I was younger. And just these are, the strong foundations of what led to a comic book reading, led to, being a collector, led to current, life. And to go with these TV shows, with these movies, there's so many different options out there that I'm glad to see that the companies are going this route. Digital comics, comics based off of games, but just the expansions of the universe. Now, I'm not as big into the games as you are, but I like the fact that they're out there. I like seeing some of these options out there because I know someone out there, their first exposure to these characters was that video game. And eventually they're going to, pick up a comic and eventually they're going to read it. Now, is it going to be a 1-to-1 ratio? Of course not. Maybe it's 100-to-1, maybe 1,000-to-1, but it's going to be a new person coming in. And that's something we need as fans of this genre. We need new people coming in because as, things go on and as we start getting older, if there's not new blood coming in, guess what? The art form dies. And I'm excited to see them try different stuff and go with modern age and variations on the proven tactics that have worked in the past.
Do you read any of the direct to digital comics, like the ones that are digital first? Like there's the Batman 66 one, there's the Injustice one based on the game, there's the Superman Adventures one. I know some of the books, I don't know if you get Legends of the Dark Knight. I don't know if you're getting any of those titles either in the paper version that comes out later or as they're being released digitally. Are you doing any of those?
Well, I am getting Batman 66 in paper. Yeah, and my game plan is I'm going to get paper, then eventually probably shift it to digital, because that's what I did with Arrow. Arrow, I'm now shifted to digital. I'm getting the digital versions of it because I kind of liked reading it. I'm probably going to do that with Smallville. I'm going to shift that to digital as well, just because it's, it seems to be easier for me to read those books, and I think that's something with, I'm getting more comfortable with getting digital comics, not having to have paper. I still do mostly paper. I still do the traditional floppy, but I am getting more digital stuff. And I do look at some of the stuff that's the direct to digital first. And I'm not 100% committed to that. I'm still old school, but I'm slowly shifting towards these new modern fangled things.
Well, see, and I'm a fan of the fact that you don't have to. Like, right. if you're like saying to yourself, I'd rather pick up the... See, I like the idea that if you do the digital first, you do release it in paper for the fan who's not. Because why should you limit the fan base? So I don't have a problem with that. I'm tempted to pick up, because I picked up the Batman 66 book all digitally. And I've been enjoying it because it's a week... It's like I'm getting new Batman episodes every week. It's cool. And it's written with cliffhangers that way. So, and I'll keep that spoiler free. Other than to say that the way the story is crafted digitally, it works a little bit different than the other DC comics in the sense that it takes full advantage of the digital format in that panels are fed to you gradually and they almost have a sense of motion to them where your thought balloons and story balloons will come into the panel as they fit chronologically to what's happening in the story. So you're not like faced with, when you do a page turn, you don't get the full page. You get a gradual revealing of the page, and a panel will actually change where action will happen in a panel. So like if there's an explosion in a panel, for example, let's say there's 3 characters, and I'm not saying this is something that happened in it, but let's say there's 3 characters in the panel and an explosion happens. The explosion happens in the actual panel.
Oh, cool.
So like,
see, now I gotta try. Now I have to get the digital, see what it looks like.
I'm anxious to get the paper to just see like how they're doing that in that book in the paper format, just because I'm curious. But I'm loving it digitally because it's different than the other digital books that I've been reading from DC in the sense that it really does take advantage of digital formats. I highly recommend for people, if you haven't picked up 66 in digital format, it's 99 cents an issue. So even if you pick up the paper, it's worth it to pick up the first one digitally to see how you like that. Just to see, because it's different. I'm sure the experience has got to be a little bit different from the paper product in the way that it reads for a digital reader. So it's part of that DC2 initiative that they announced, where they're doing those with like those digital books in like a little bit of a different format. And I really, really like it. It's a terrific book. It's funny how it's got the same feel as the 66 show, but yet it obviously talks to the fan that was like us, that didn't know it was a spoof. Because the stories have got some serious depth to them. They're fun, but we're dealing with some really cool stories there. They're fun. They're great to read. The art's fantastic. It feels like we're watching new episodes of that show, and I am just giddy. It's really, hands down, when it comes out, it's the first book I read.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah, I haven't had a chance to read issue 1 yet because I've been playing catch up on other stuff. But now I think I'm gonna, when we get done here, jump on that and then maybe get some digital stuff and do a comparison, see what it looks like.
I also want to shout out for people, if you're not a gamer, I don't have Injustice Gods Among Us. I have it on my iPad. I don't have it. I just haven't gotten a game system. It's just financially, I haven't dealt. I've got a lot of games on my computer right now, and between running a podcast and things like that, it's trying to find the time to actually say, am I going to put that kind of expense into getting a game system? I haven't done it. So I read the comic, and I've been reading the comic. It's very accessible to a reader who's not playing the game. It's a great comic. So if anybody out there is listening to this and you're like, wow, I didn't pick up the game, I might pick up the game. If you're kind of like me, I'm anxious to pick up the game. In some format, I'm going to get it. There were rumors, and I don't know how true this is, on some French site, Amazon France or something like that, they listed the Game of the Year edition of that game. Now, you got to take this with a grain of salt. But when they listed the Game of the Year editions, they listed the current game systems. But they also, because it was released on the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, and the Wii U. They also listed the PlayStation Vita for the Game of the Year and the PC. And the PC just released Warner's, because Warner owns the company that did Mortal Kombat. A couple years ago, they just did a Mortal Kombat reboot, and that was just released on the PC. So there's a part of me that's like, are they going to release it on the PC? If so, I'll get it that way. If not, I'm going to eventually dig up this game and play it because I really want to play it. But barring that, the comic reads really, really well. It's a great alternate universe DC comic. It's, what if people very close to a certain hero died and that caused that hero to snap?
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that and just say it's 99 cents. Pick it up and try it. It's cool. It's really a cool book. I'm a big fan of the digital stuff, and I know they're doing more of it because it's been incredibly successful for DC, the digital end. Their sales are up big time because of digital. So there's an acknowledgement that digital's doing it as well. That's not to say that their paper business is dead. Not at all. This is what I hope digital would be, and I hope digital continues to be, is the new newsstand. We don't have a newsstand anymore. We have the direct comic shops. To me, growing up, there was always a symbiotic relationship between the newsstand and the direct market, in the sense that the newsstand was always easier to get to for casual fans. That built a more loyal direct market fan out of those casual fans. The true geeks came out of that. To me, if digital is not being used to develop a new fan, there's a major boat that's being missed there. You need to use that to bring the newer fan into the direct market, where maybe that there's some of those fans like you were talking about before, a ratio of them are just going to stay digital. And maybe you're going to get a fan or two that go from paper to straight digital, and that's all they're going to do now. Okay, but ideally, if digital's used right, it will draw in a new fan to the direct market that will hopefully help those stores with more business, more swag. Maybe it will change the way they do business, to appeal to a kind of a hybrid fan. But, that will ultimately bring in a casual traffic if done right. And that needs to be done more. I don't think enough is being done yet. And I think it's because it's still in its infancy when you think about it. I mean, it's taken leaps and bounds from where it was at the beginning, but this is still in its infancy. So I hope we see that come out of it. Can we talk about this Green Lantern panel?
Oh, yeah. In brightest days. Maybe not so much.
Well, the big news out of it was this new crossover, Lights Out. That's beginning in October. It's going to affect all 4 books. So it really sets kind of like the premise of how Guy Gardner becomes a Red Lantern and stuff like that. But it also, Relic, who's this villain that we got to see right at the start, is going to this huge threat to the point where one of the color core is going to be taken down. And it looks like they're going to be taken down, if not permanently, they're going to be off the table for quite a while because their battery is going to be destroyed. So what core do you think it's going to be? Do you have any speculation, Jim, on who you think it might be?
I'm thinking it's going to be blue, but I don't want it to be blue because I really like the Blue Lanterns, but I think they're going to get rid of the blue. I think they're going to tease you, making you think it's the Star Sapphire, but in reality, they're going to shift it and twist it, and you're going to be surprised, and it'll be either maybe the blue will make a sacrifice, maybe something along those lines, and I think we're going to lose the blue core, which I really like it, so I don't want to see this happen, but that's where I think it's going to go.
Now, one of the writers was mentioning, because the blue core was asked about in the panel, and one of the writers was mentioning that the blue, I think specifically St. Walker, was going to be making appearances in the future, and there's an arc coming up. Now, it could be that that character or those characters are making an appearance because of just what you said. The other thing I was questioning is, there wasn't a whole lot being said about the Indigo Tribe.
Yeah.
I'm almost wondering if the Star Sapphire and the blue being brought into our face like that and talked about so much, why didn't they talk about the Indigo Tribe? So I don't know. It's interesting. The sad part, or the scary part of that is, I don't really feel that there's a tribe that's expendable.
Oh, completely agree. If I had my choice, I wouldn't get rid of any of them, but we're going to get something. And again, this is something where I got to wait and see what happens. I'm still getting a comfort level with this creative team on the Green Universe. I'm enjoying the stories I'm getting, so I'm like, oh, okay, I'll see where this goes. I'm not going to blast them or say, oh, this is terrible, because I don't know what we're going to get yet. It's weird when we talked earlier about the Batman, Superman, how he said, oh, we're so comfortable with the creative team. This is a good, solid creative team. These are very talented, and I'm enjoying what I'm getting, but I don't have that same comfort. If this was, Jeff Johns writing it, I'd be like, okay, great, let's see what happens, because I'm comfortable with that writer. I'm comfortable with that creative team. But this is something where I got to sit back and say, okay, what's going to happen? I am excited. I am anticipating who's it going to be. This is, the whole lights out concept, this concept of Relic, of who he is, what he's able to do, how he's able to do it. These are all stuff I want to see, and I want to see how it plays out. So this is one of those, like, what's going to happen? Where's it? Because there's a lot of neat stuff that can come out of all these multiple color cores, and I don't know where it's going to go. I honestly have no idea. And on one hand, it's kind of, there is a level of fear because I have no idea where this is going to go. I have no solid, I think it's going to be blank, because I don't know where this team is going. I don't know where their mindset is. I don't know how it's going to flow yet. And I got to see what's going to happen. I think that's part of an excitement of a story, that if you have no concept, you have no idea what's going to happen, and you just got to wait till it's presented to you, that for me is something that is very special, and, is the beginning of what could be one of those epic, oh my God, stories, because I had no basis of where I think this is going to go.
Now, here's the question that I have. This was funny. One of the fans of the panel, I guess, was asking if Alan Scott would be involved in Lights Out. You would think a person who's able to throw out Alan Scott's name at the panel would realize that Alan Scott's on Earth too, right?
Yeah.
Why would you ask that?
Maybe this is a crossover. This could be the connection.
Well, no. The guy said no, because he's got.
Yeah, I know, but no. That I'm putting myself in the mindset of the fan who asked the question.
Oh, okay.
Maybe they're thinking, hey, this could be, if this is Lights Out for the Green Lantern Corps, maybe this guy is Earth 2. Maybe that's how he's able to negate the power. Maybe there's some connection that way.
Oh, you were thinking Relic was the connection to Earth 2.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
And I have no idea who the person who asked the question or anything behind that. I'm just throwing out if you're saying that somebody in a different universe.
Yeah, you're saying that could be a possible link.
Yeah.
Okay, and I could go with that, actually. I wouldn't have an issue with that. It's funny how I was looking at more that he doesn't really have a connection to the Green Lantern Corps, so why would he be involved? But that would be a look, and I actually like that. What do you think about Guy Gardner, Red Lantern, moving forward? How does that feel to you?
Man, it's funny. If you had asked me this a year ago, I would have been like, yeah, all right. I would have been pumped about it because, Guy is, the rage, is just the fire. I'm like, yeah, that can be cool. But as the story, as Guy kept going on, as we started getting his backstory, I really like him as a Green Lantern, and he was my least favorite Green Lantern. But I want to see him in green. I don't want to see him in red, and it's funny because. Again, as I said, a year ago, before they really started developing the character, really started giving us his backstory, we started seeing the Zero issue, the annual, all this different stuff that showed us who Guy is and what he's about and where he comes from. Before all of that, I would have been 100% gung ho Red Lantern Guy Gardner. Heck, I'd probably. When we first started introducing talking about the Red Lanterns, I probably said Guy would make a good Red Lantern in previous issues. Now I'm like, I really like Guy in green, so I'm curious to see where this is gonna go. This is another one of those what's gonna happen to Guy, because he is a cool Green Lantern, but you know what? He makes a pretty decent Red Lantern as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that story selling me on it, because I'm with you. There's a trepidation only because I like what they've done with the development of the character prior to this. I'm not against it. They just got to sell me on it. So I'm looking forward to hopefully the story being good enough that it will make me a believer. And that's really all it takes, is a really well-crafted story by the right creative teams. And so far, more and more that I'm reading Green Lantern titles with these new teams, more and more I'm gaining faith in what they're doing. So we'll see where this all goes.
Exactly. This is something that we're developing our relationship with this creative team. And until we actually see it play out, until we get this time with it, then we're going to have our solid knowledge and our solid comfort with it. Again, Guy is one of those tough ones where I did really enjoy green, but you know what? We're seeing some cool stuff. We're seeing some, neat usage of the Red Lanterns, and this could be, one of those linchpins that really make me enjoy it. I gotta see the story, and just like the other Earth Red Lantern, I'm digging him. I'm digging how they're developing him and how he's becoming more red than what he was before, but he's not completely giving up who he was.
What do you think? There's been some shifts, because it looks like we've got some writing shifts going on in the Green Lantern universe. As far as we've lost a couple of writers along the way in this process. Robert Venditti has consistently been staying around since the shift. But how do you feel about that when there's little changes like that going on?
It makes me worried because of the flow. It makes me, it's one of those things where when you start going down one road one way, and then there's a little bump and a little hiccup in it, how is the journey going to continue? When you have that's why I always love long runs, and I love these where the writer can really grow into the character, because it takes a couple issues for you to get that comfort with what the story you're being told. Now, right out the gates, we're getting hit with some cool stuff, and I'm enjoying it. But it's that long-term reading. It's that long-term, enjoyment of the character. And if we keep getting hiccups and they keep shifting stuff around, that will eventually throw me off, because there will be little variations, little hiccups, little, smidgens in the road that, you're like, this, what would have happened? And then you start asking that question, what if? What if this person had continued on, or where would this have gone? Or it's, so I hope they can get things calm, settled, and just start running long distance and really give us a solid long-term green team.
I'm excited after the panel. The panel got me excited for the direction the team's going in right now. Which those panels are really important. I wish, my only one drawback is I wish these had been streamed.
Yeah.
Where we could have watched them. I think nowadays it's almost inexcusable not to. And I don't know why the comic companies aren't doing that. I know that the idea is to draw everyone to San Diego, but the truth is San Diego sells out in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And I don't think, YouTubing the panels are going to you could really wait till San Diego sold out and say, as long as San Diego, because they do that with other sporting events, and things like that, where you won't get a local game unless the local stadium is sold out, if that makes sense. So why don't they do that with like San Diego and just kind of go, hey, as long as San Diego sells out, DC's going to stream the panels. Stream your panels. And the reason why I'm even mentioning that is, for me, when you do a panel, for me there's a connection to the voice, the emotion coming off of the visuals of the creators and the audio. I want that. I would have watched every one of these panels. Like, first of all, thank you to not just DC Comics News, but Newsarama, Comic Book Resources, all these sites that have been, and I apologize for anybody I left out, all these sites that have been doing news reporting on the panels. I love that kind of stuff. That's great. And I would still, hit those sites to read, their summaries and their reviews of the panels. But I would love to see the panel, to be able to archive. Like right now, for us to be able to go, hey, dude, let's spend an hour today and let's watch the panel from Green Lantern and talk about it.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to do that. I think that's great. And as a fan, forget the podcast. Take the podcast out of it. There's so many comic book panels. I would love to spend a few weeks, not just DC, across comics, watching the panels from San Diego. We can't get that. It was baffling that there was less coverage this year on television of San Diego.
Yeah.
And I know it's because G4's structures changed. I get that. But somebody else didn't pick that up and go, oh, wait, there's a gap here. Why don't we show them how it's done? Nobody picked up on this being one of the biggest geek culture events. There wasn't a single channel that did more. Like, Spike had an opportunity. I think Spike dropped the ball, to, not expand their coverage. They had an hour's coverage the Monday after the con. And it was mainly involved in the movie and television end.
You think about it, the WB channel.
Yeah.
How many of their TV shows are being advertised at San Diego Comic-Con? Run a coverage of, if nothing else, run a coverage of your TV shows.
But what I'm saying is, and I mean, amen. I agree with what you're saying, so this isn't disputing that. But there's a lot of smaller channels I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That why aren't you taking an opportunity to say, hey, let's try this. Let's go there and, let's do straight interviews from the con floor and try to hit as many places as we can. I mean, the amount of stuff that's on, my television that I just don't ever, channels I never touch, that I would, be drawn to. It'd be a great opportunity for them to advertise programs tailored to me that they probably have that I just have no time. Sci-Fi Channel. Let's go to another one. Wait, the channel that's putting out shows like Sharknado didn't take advantage of this? And I'm not knocking Sharknado. It was great B-movie schlock. I loved it.
Oh, God, yeah.
But, seriously? You didn't take advantage of running programming from San Diego?
Yeah, and it's funny, one of the things I was thinking of is what if they offered where you had to pay a couple bucks and then you get access to the different things. Would you pay,
yes,
$5? I would too. So this would be a way for them to even get more revenue out of this.
I would pay more than $5. I would pay a ticket. Wait, here, I'll tell you what I did. I did this. There's a con called FlipCon.
Okay.
FlipCon 13. This is for teachers who flip their classrooms. It's called, classroom flipping, and I won't go into the whole premise of it. But, I've taken a new position at work, and a lot of our teachers at the middle school and high school have been experimenting with and successfully flipping their classrooms. There's a convention devoted to that. I couldn't go to the convention. They streamed, most of it online. And when I say stream most of it, you have an access to it. You can watch for up to 6 months. You have access to the panels. So you can go through, and each day I've been going through and watching one of them.
Nice.
See, I would pay a ticket price for San Diego to
actually, I probably would too.
To watch the panels. I would. I mean, that would be why wouldn't I do that?
Or how cool would it be? You pay, you do a San Diego party where you have a bunch of your friends hanging out. You're sitting around the computer playing the panel, and that way it's actually like you're there with you and your friends.
Well, you would throw it on your TV.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I would do. And how cool would that be? I mean, I know you'd come over. I mean, we could literally say, hey, dude, let's take this Saturday, and we're just going to go through and just watch as many panels as we can. We'll get some food and hang out and probably be more comfortable than we ever would have been. I mean, ideally, I would love to go to San Diego. The problem I run into is anytime I go to California, one of my best friends lives there, and I always bring my wife because that's a big trip. I can't, like, for my trip to San Diego, I can't take my wife and have her go. I know she'd have fun at the San Diego Con. I can't make our whole vacation, though, about me at a comic convention.
Right. Well, you can. It just wouldn't be a smart move.
No, not at all. Not at all. So I always run into that dilemma when it comes to San Diego. On the other hand, I would gladly pay to be able to watch the streaming of it and to be a part of that and not just watch the DZ stuff, to watch all of it.
See, here's what with me, one of the big people always ask me at work, hey, you ever going to go to San Diego? Because the non-comic book fans know of San Diego Comic-Con. They know it's huge. And I'm always, I'm like, I don't think so, because I really am uncomfortable in large groups like that. New York Comic-Con really gets to me as being too confined and too close. I had a couple moments a lot of times when I'm there where I'm starting having, panic attacks and I need to move because I'm stuck in one place too long with massive swarms of people around.
Is it a, and this is not in any way, shape, or form knocking anything you just said. Is it a claustrophobic kind of thing, or what? I mean, what? And I'm genuinely asking. I'm not setting you up for.
It's a combination of claustrophobic, but it is also it's large crowds, large mass of people. Okay. And it's just, there's just something, and I've always had this where, if I'm in like a, large swarm of people, I do feel kind of claustrophobic. I do get some panic attacks going, but if I can keep moving, I'm okay. And that's why a lot of times when I'm at cons, I'm constantly walking, unless when we're at the table, I'm able to sit at the table, because the table, I got my barrier. I got my protection of people around me. But when I'm on the con floor, I like to keep moving, and I like, just to keep going, because when I stop, I'm like, Argh. So San Diego for me would be a very difficult situation, because I know that's wall-to-wall people, and a lot of times you're moving at half a step, every minute, and I think that would get to me.
See, and I like that kind of stuff. I really do. And I'm not knocking you because I get it. You and I each have our own set of issues, and that's not one of mine, but I have plenty of my own. That's why I was really trying to be sensitive to what you were saying, because I totally get what you're saying, and it's coming at a point of genuine honesty. And I think that's one of the great things about the amount of convention content available nowadays. There's all different kinds of conventions going on all over the country, from smaller local ones to medium to huge conventions. So there's a little something for everybody out there. And I think it's fantastic, because you can hit the kind of con that's right for you. I want to hit San Diego just because I want to be in the middle of all that. The one frustration that I would have with San Diego would be, I know that there's panels you get shut out of. And that would drive me up a wall, because to me, it's when I want to go to a panel, I want to hit that panel. It's one thing if two panels are at the same time. Well, okay, so that happens. But to be actually shut out of a panel that I was looking forward to would drive me up a wall. Or to have to sit for hours to wait for that panel.
Yeah. See, that's what a lot of the people had to do. Yeah. And there was on the one show I listened to on XM, Ron and Fez, they had a guy who was one of their regulars was actually there, and he was covering San Diego Con, and he said that he had a press pass, and he said even that didn't get him into some of the blocked out panels. If that panel got locked out, he wasn't able to get into it. And that was something that would drive me nuts. If I went there, I waited in line, you just missed it by a couple, or you missed it by a dozen. No, press pass doesn't get you in even. That I think would drive me even, I would probably lose it then, to be so close and not able to get in. It's, San Diego, it's a great con, but I think it's the wrong type for me.
I wonder if they do like, how you can get like, at the Wizard shows and at New York and stuff like that, you can get those VIPs. I wonder if you can do something like that in San Diego. And I guess the question would be, in San Diego, you'd almost need to have a limited number of panels you can do this at. Where you can say, like, you got 5 panels that, like, you can use your fast pass on or something like that, where you are guaranteed a spot in that panel, if that makes sense. There's a roll.
Oh, God, yeah. And that actually would be a neat concept to do, where, because the VIP, they every so often with the VIPs, you get premium access, you get early entry. But I think that would be a neat concept where you get a couple panels where you can use a separate card that you turn in.
Because to me, it's funny how, as time's gone on, I've become much more of a panel junkie. And I think it's just because that's really the stage where creators get an opportunity to, and I'm not, this isn't just a DC thing. I love going to indie panels, new companies that are doing it. I know Action Lab, that Jamal's Molly Danger came out through, they had a panel at San Diego. And I would have loved to have gone to something like that, if I was there, because that's a great opportunity for them to, their products that I'm not familiar with. And I read all the details of their panel. But I would have loved to, that's another one I would have loved to have seen streamed, because I would love to see the creators talk about, some of the cool new things that they're doing there. But I think, moving forward, I think that's it's a great way for, I think, the convention to make more money. And I'm not, San Diego might already do something like that. I'm sure they do a VIP on some level, and I'm sure they sell out, excessively quick. I wonder how the logistics of a VIP works in San Diego. I'd imagine it's different than it is at any other convention because of the sheer number of people. You almost can't count on roping off an area, universally.
Yeah.
Because it's literally wall-to-wall people. So I don't know. I'd be curious to see how that works out there. One other thing I want to talk about the Green Lanterns, just to jump back to that real quick, and we can jump onto another panel. I like the idea that they're pushed Kyle Gardner as a White Lantern to take him back to kind of his origins at the time when he was a unique only Lantern. So now he's the only White Lantern. So it's going back to kind of Kyle's original concept of being unique. And that works for me. I'm really liking him in that role, and I'm glad they took him to that level. What do you think about, first of all, did you get a chance to read Larfleeze's book?
Yes.
What do you think about Larfleeze right now as a character? How do you like him having his own book?
I like it. I was wondering where it's going to go, but it's, again, comfortable with creative team. I'm okay with where it's going, and I kind of enjoyed it. It's not my premium, Lantern book. That's getting, set aside for Lantern and for the core and, for, the other titles. But it's one of those where right now I'm reading it. I'm happy I'm reading it. It could very easily get put on the chopping block. And if it gets put on the chopping block, it's not because of quality. It's just because I have so many titles. And it's a title I think right now I'm enjoying it. So I wouldn't think of, cutting it. But as time goes on, if I have to start, I got to start making budget cuts, I think I probably could cut it. Whereas the other green titles, I think I would have a much harder time cutting those books as compared to this one for some reason. I think it's partially because he is separated and disconnected. He's not completely interacting with the DC universe as the green titles do. So there's kind of a disconnect there, but I don't know. And I don't want to sound like, and I definitely don't want to sound like I'm disliking it, because I'm not. I'm enjoying it. It's entertaining. It's fun. I like where we're going with the stories, and I am curious where it's going to lead to, etc. But it is a character, and it is a title that I'm like, I don't know my longevity with it.
Does it have the potential to rise up the stack?
Oh, definitely has. 100% has potential to rise up the stack. And I think as time goes, there could definitely be a rise. There definitely could be an increase in the reading for it. And that's why I'm not saying that it's, on the chopping block, because it's nowhere near the block right now. It's just one of those things where I think it's just the disconnect. I have such a longevity with Green Lantern, with the Green Lantern Corps, even with the Red Lanterns, and, the Guardians, the new Guardians. I have this long-term longevity connection with them that I'm solid locked in with them. So when you add another title into the mix, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. It could get cut. It could grow. There's definitely talent on the book. So when you have talent on the book, then that means it has potential to grow and has potential to be one of those books. Oh, this is awesome. Larfleeze rules. But for right now, I'm not at that level with it.
Because he's going to be in 2 of the issues of the crossover.
Right. Oh, yeah. He's firmly in with the Green Universe. He's firmly in the universe, and I think 100% guarantee he's not going anywhere. It's not going to be his battery that gets destroyed. Mostly because he pretty much is his battery, so I'm not thinking there's going to be a chance for him to go away anytime soon, and I'm okay with that. I've never once thought, let's get rid of him, because, Larfleeze does serve a purpose in the universe. He does have some great interaction moments, and you think about just how they've used him in the past and how the potential using him in the future, there's some neat stuff that can come out of Larfleeze. So that's why I'm not dismissing it or saying it's garbage. It's solid, and I think it's, again, a long-term thing. I have a longer connection and growth with the other titles.
Now, what do you think of Guy taking down the leader of the Red Lanterns?
Again, I want Guy as the green. I want Guy in green, but you think it is a neat concept, a neat way for Guy to grow into the red and to become red. To actually be, not just be a double agent, not just be a spy, but to actually be a Red Lantern. You take down the top dog, guess what? You're now the top dog, but when you're on top, everyone's gunning for you.
And they're trying to make a new home, which I think is going to be really interesting. I'm fascinated about that. Like, where are they going for their new home? Why do they have to go to a new home? Because wouldn't they have to stay on their home planet?
Yeah, because that's like the source and the growth, but it could be one of those things where you have to grow beyond what it was. And this could be the way, this could be, you think about just, everything that planet has had. It's been the source. It's been the birth of the rage, birth of just of the blood, that powers the Red Lantern. Well, what if they're able to take that on? What if they're able to move to a new home? What if, it's that which does not kill you only serves to make you stronger? By leaving what's their comfort zone, by leaving what is known and accepted, do they have the chance to grow even stronger, to actually spread it? From now you have point A and point B. Well, next you have point C. Next, it's a growth and an expansion of the red, of this core. And on one hand, I'm like, I like it. I like the possibilities. I like the concepts. And again, exploration, growth of characters is always, can always be a great thing, but it is one of those things. I got to read the story. I got to see where it goes, how it happens. Everything that plays out and comes to be. That's when we're going to really see it and get locked into it.
Villains Month is going to be affecting this line, obviously, and characters like Black Hand are going to get their own Villain Month issue. We know Sinestro is going to be appearing in that miniseries as well.
Yeah.
And they talked about his bromance that's coming up with Black Adam, which I'm very excited about, just because I think it makes sense for those two characters to relate on some level. How do you feel, and we'll probably talk more about this a little later, how do you feel about the whole Villains Month idea?
The idea I thought was a really neat concept, and I like the fact that we don't know exactly how it's going to happen. All we know is the heroes are going to lose, the villains are there, here's the month. And I was really glad how DCBS did the ordering, where I was able to just click on the one. They had a nice bundle of all the Forever Evil titles. You click once, you order them all, because what threw me was when I started seeing all the titles. I was thinking it would be one Justice League of America, one Bat, and all the titles would have this villain thing, but I saw we had like 23.1, 23.2, 0.3, 0.4, all the different villains connected with this, and that had me wondering, okay, where is this going to go? What's going to happen next month? Where, is it going to go back to the heroes? Are we still going to get villains? So as they're giving us details, as they're telling us and talking about it, there's still the mystery of where it's going, how it's going to happen, what's going to happen next. And I think, again, anticipation of a story, unknown. Give me the nice teasers. I'm going to get a Black Adam story. I'm going to get a Sinestro. I'm going to get, all the various Batmans, the Rogues, and whatnot. This is going to be a neat month. But what's going to happen next month? Are we still going to get more villains? Or is this going to be back to heroes?
Well,
combination of whatnot.
They did announce that.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they said what's going to happen is that certain titles are going to continue on, with their normal continuity. The ones that aren't involved directly in the crossover. But there will come a point when the event is done, that the other titles will do like a catch-up, if that makes sense. Like, okay. Their storyline will come to an end, and the next month will be, bam, it takes place right after the event.
Oh, okay.
So I'm excited for it. And this is actually, I guess this Forever Evil is supposed to be like the beginning of New 52 2.0. Like the first, like they said, a lot of the storylines are going to be tied up in this event. And then at the end of it, it's going to be like the beginning of the second phase of the New 52. And a lot of the big teams are going to be changed, including things like, I think they said Suicide Squad, the Justice League teams, all three of them. Mm-hmm. There's going to be lots of changes that come out of it. So I'm excited for this. Like, I don't know how you do. Do you get eventitis? Because I really don't. I do if it feels like they're just randomly throwing in events for no real reason, but I can't remember the last time I've actually felt that. I felt they've always been story-driven, so I'm fine with that. But do you get eventitis?
No. I really don't have issues with that, but again, it's one of those things where I think if they overdid it, or if they, because then I can understand people saying they have eventitis, but for me, I've never really felt it. I think one of the closest thing I would come to it is when I start seeing a lot of different miniseries or stuff like that, where I'm like, why are we doing this? And it's one of those things where they keep throwing multiple titles, and I want to get this, I want to get that, and I eventually say no, I have to. It's the financial resources, but a lot of this, when they're doing these connections with the events, like the Trinity Wars, connected to titles that one I'm already getting, so it's not like a big deal for me. And then with this Forever Evil, they're continuing. I'm not adding any extra titles, and I'm not decreasing any of my titles, so everything's going pretty smooth with that. So I think right now for me, the way they're handling it, events within the context of the monthly stories are wonderful, and occasionally you have to have a little extra here, a little bit there. I'm fine with that, a little extra, but the main thing is they're telling it in the story, and I think that's, for me, a great way to do an event, a great way to cover it. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to this. I didn't know what to expect, and then when I started reading the panels, I still don't have complete details where it's going to go, but I don't want that. I want to be told the details when the story plays out. I want to read it firsthand. We do a spoiler podcast, but I kind of I don't like being spoiled on a lot of stuff. I want the surprise. I want oh my God, I didn't see that coming.
You have to remember, we do spoiler warnings for the purpose of not ruining that experience.
Exactly.
The idea is for the enjoyment of discussing it after you've read it. So that's the reason why we do what we do. So it's never been to ruin. Otherwise, we wouldn't do the warning. Who cares? But we really try to protect that and to have the discussion after the fact, because that's half the fun after you're done reading it. Yeah. Like, what do you think is going to happen next? There's a couple quick things I want to discuss before we begin our next segment, Jim. So I want to end up this segment with big news about Sandman. There was a Sandman 25th anniversary panel. I'm a huge Sandman fan. I read the whole series. I jumped on after the second trade came out. I finally started reading Sandman. So I wasn't one of the ones that got on the beginning. I heard the buzz about it. I started reading. And I became hooked. And I read it all the way through the conclusion as a monthly title after that. And then I read Death, The High Cost of Living, and then Time of Your Life, and various different things that they've released related to Sandman, including spin-offs that have come out of the book, like The Dreaming and stuff like that. This is going to be a story that predates it. It was originally planned by him for the 20th anniversary, but it takes place before the series, so it's going to be Morpheus again. I don't know what your exposure is to Sandman. I know we've talked about it on the show before. I don't know if you've had a chance to read any Sandman. I know you got some Sandman. Did you ever read any of it?
I've read some of it. I haven't read it, all of it, to be honest with you. It's one of those things where I want to sit down and read it and enjoy it, but I keep getting other stuff that I'm doing and this and that. So it's, everything I've read, I've absolutely enjoyed and I've absolutely loved. And I was like, oh my God, I got to read more. And I have them sitting right there within reach of my hands right now. But it's always been about time. It's always been about, when do I have the time to sit down and actually read this and not just skim it. I want to sit down and savor it and enjoy it, because I am a huge Gaiman fan. What he puts out, I love it. I like his style. I like the presentation. And Sandman's another one of those titles. Like, oh man, this is so cool. So when all this stuff comes out, even though I haven't read everything, I see the title, I see who's doing, and I immediately buy it. And I immediately jump on this stuff knowing that one day I will get a chance to sit down and read it and I will love it. And it's a comfort with a creator and a comfort with the style, the story being told. So, the all this stuff about, 25th anniversary, everything, I was like, oh, cool. Just talking about the Sandman Overture, I'm like, okay, well, that's another thing I'm going to have to get. But, it's one of those.
Will you jump on? See, like for me, it's a must read. It's going to be bi-monthly, and then in the alternating months, they're releasing a bonus materials issue, and then back to the second issue. Then same thing. When it's a prequel miniseries like this, and there's no right or wrong answer to this. I'm just curious how you handle something like this. For me, it's a definite read. I'm going to jump on it right away. When it comes out, it's probably going to be a top-of-the-stack read. I would be in shock if it's not, depending on what titles are coming out. I can't really say until it's when we actually get to the release of it, but oh my gosh, I can't imagine it not being up in my short stack. But that's me. I've read all of it. Being that it's a prequel, though, I think it's very open-ended. I know it's open-ended because it's a story that he didn't see fitting into the framework of the series. So it's better served as its own tale. He even said that. So for somebody like you in your position, with you having a stockpile of Sandman material already ready that you need to read, does that make you more inclined to say, hey, I'm going to read this as it comes out? Or are you like, I kind of want to read the other stuff first, then jump to that? How do you fall on something like that? And there's no wrong answer. I'm just curious.
And right now, I don't have an answer for that, because when I was reading the stuff from San Diego about this, I was trying to figure out how am I going to approach this. Because right now, everything I have, Sandman, is collected. It's absolute. It's bound, and it's big, thick books. I don't have floppies. I don't have any smaller collection. So part of me is thinking I would wait till this comes out in a collected format and I get it that way. But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know if I want to wait for that. This is going to be one of those game day decisions when they advertise it, when it's listed there, when it's, when it's available, what am I going to do? Am I going to click on it? Am I going to order it? Or am I going to wait knowing that it's going to be collected and get it then? I don't know yet. And I'm still trying to figure out. I think I'm probably going to pick up the first issue in floppy format. And knowing me, I'll probably read it when it comes out, and then I'll make the decision whether I keep reading floppy and will I wait to collect it. Now, I'm assuming that if I do that, I'm going to be all in, and I'm just going to keep running with it, and I'm going to just keep reading, this prequel without having read everything that came before it. And I think this may be the catalyst to have me, for me to have a Sandman marathon where I get up, early in the morning. I sit down and I read, and I just go through beginning to end, and I do a marathon of mega reading. I'm thinking this is going to be that catalyst that launches that.
In a weird way, I'd like to be at your house when you do that because I want to like put like a timer down and see how long it takes for your head to explode. Just because of the material.
I think it's funny because one of the things about Sandman, about Neil Gaiman, I have a friend at work who she reads Neil Gaiman. She reads his prose books, and she knows, but she's not a comic book fan. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't read the comics, but she, when they first announced this, she came, hey, did you hear Gaiman? Oh yeah, we're, talking about it and exciting and just anticipation of this coming out. And he's one of those creators who really has multiple and variants of legions of loyal fans out of his different formats, and I think that's something that always impresses me. Just because she and I can sit there and talk about all the different Gaiman stuff, and we can talk about she's read books that I've a lot of the prose books that I've never read, and I have the comics and I have the absolute versions that she's never seen. He's like, oh wow, I brought one. It was funny. I brought one in for her to see the format of it, and she went completely nuts over it. Going, oh my God, I got to get this. So he's one of those characters that he reaches out multiple genres, multiple people.
Yeah, and I think writers like that are important to comics because he still comes back to that world and to that fan base. And I think it's important because he can bring new fans with him. And I'm all for anybody who can be an ambassador to the medium. And I really hope, I know it's going to be successful, but I hope it's successful at bringing a newer audience to reading comics. Maybe somebody who's never read Sandman and is a fan of his prose work will jump on and read it that way, because Sandman is just an incredible work. I remember I was working at Diamond selling suits as that series was being released, and I had people there reading it because it was, I was working with some people in my age group who were not comic fans at all. But Sandman was one of those, because it wasn't your capes and tights book, that you could give to somebody else and say, look, read this. This is proof of what comics can do. And Vertigo was really that line, at the time, where you could start handing it to people. It became your bookstore line, where you had a trendy bookstore crowd that was reading comics because there was different kinds of comics out there. And I don't know. I hope there's an opportunity for Sandman to be a part of that kind of a wave again, and I hope that it does that. I hope it brings some people in. One last thing I want to talk about in this segment, and then we'll jump on to our next segment. But Necessary Evil: Supervillains of DC Comics, the documentary. I'm a fan of this kind of stuff. It's coming out October 25th, 2013. It's narrated by Christopher Lee. I mean, it's going to go through the Joker, Deathstroke, Darkseid, Lex Luthor, all of, these characters, various rogues galleries, things like that. How do you feel about Are you excited for this? I am. I'm salivating. I'm chomping at the bit for this one. Is this something you get into?
It's weird. Yes and no. On one hand, I really am looking forward to this. I want to see where this goes. But a lot of times with me, for some odd reason, documentaries, and it's just the format of the documentary always, it kind of loses me sometimes. So I want to see, if I'm going to be more connected to this, if I'm going to be, because it is about the comics, because it is about characters and, a subject that I am really passionate and I really enjoy. So I want to see, but normally a documentary always throws me. I would say I prefer, for me, more of reenactments and recreations and just a story telling it instead of the interview documentary format. I know it may sound a little bit odd considering, we talk about comics, and it's, in a way, a documentary is kind of like a podcast where it's, people who are associated with it, who know something, are talking about it. But for some reason, whenever I watch a movie documentaries or the TV show documentaries, I'm not always completely committed to it unless they have the reenactments of it. And I actually see stuff like the TV shows like The First 48 and different crime stories where they actually have recreations of the crime, and you kind of see it's probably bad acting because these aren't really the actors, it's really people recreating what happens, but I kind of like it. Like I Almost Got Away With It is another one where it's in a way is a documentary where they're talking about this criminal who almost got away with the crime, but I like it more because you see a recreation of it. You get moments where the real person who's currently incarcerated saying, "Hey, yeah, I was desperate, so I tried this," and then you actually see this character that you're used to being portray this person actually do it and then get busted. It's just the personal choice on me in documentaries. I've never been too solid in it.
So, in order for this to 100% work for you, if they're talking about the Joker and they tie people up to giant candles on a giant birthday cake, you're in?
Or if they show someone
I'm kidding.
in Joker. Hey, hold on, I'm being serious here. If they ran a documentary and they hired someone to play the Joker and act as if he was the Joker or act as if he was Lex Luthor, I probably would enjoy it more. Now, I'm saying this having not seen it, who knows? This could be a documentary that I actually go crazy over, but it just, as a general rule, me and documentaries aren't the strongest connection.
See, I like that kind of stuff. I like the books that go behind the scenes. I like books that do explorations of, character psychology and stuff like that. And I'm not saying you're wrong for feeling what you are. I think that's one of the cool things about, it's what we talked about earlier about multimedia. I think that you don't necessarily have to latch on to every single element of those things. But by providing different things like this, you're appealing to different kinds of fans. And I think there's a little bit of something for everybody. I'm a big swag fan in the sense that I don't necessarily grab all of it, but I can admire it. I have action figures. financially, I can't afford to grab every one of the action figures that I want. Where on the other hand, there's probably people listening to this that will have their comic budget balanced out in such a way that they're heavy-duty figure collectors. They have wonderful display cases of figures, or still packaged figures that they've kept together, and they plan their budget out with the intention of balancing out between comics and the figures and things like that. So I think that's where it's great that documentaries and swag and statues and posters and all these different things are being made available in games and movies and all those type of things, because I think you can appeal to a fan who can kind of craft this hobby and customize it in a way that fits all of their interests and is very satisfying to them as a fan. That's kind of cool. I don't know. I'm very excited for the documentary, especially with Christopher Lee, doing the narration. You couldn't do better with that. I just hope it's a very rich, deeply satisfying documentary. I'm into it. But Jim,
I am looking forward to seeing it. Just as I said, documentaries aren't my normal go-to, so I'm curious to see, because it is about comic books, because it is about these villains, because it is about a subject that I'm like, oh yeah, because you do need good villains to make great heroes. You do need that. And I think that's going to be a part of the point behind this documentary is you have to have these great villains to have these, superheroes really, they need to have a true challenge. They need to have it believable that these villains could defeat the hero. But you have to have that nice balance. So I'm curious to see how they go with that and where the discussions and commentary goes on that lines.
Does the timing of it with like the Forever Evil event and Villains Month, and the fact that that's going to be released in October, does that influence you where you're like, are you more interested in it, less interested in it because of the fact that there's big villain events going on in the universe at that time?
Oh, definitely more interested because of it. Because, when I first heard about this, I didn't completely know that it was going to be a documentary style. I thought there was going to be a kind of a discussion. I thought the initial quick read through I heard about this, I was thinking it was going to be a comic where they go into this. I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of neat to just kind of a who's who, a what if, kind of I was thinking that. And then I reread, I'm like, oh no, this is a documentary. Oh, yeah, it's kind of interesting. But it's, again, when it's occurring, why it's occurring, I think that for me does have more excitement and more anticipation of it. If it had just been, like right now or, at the beginning of the year, I probably would have been, oh, okay, well, yeah, I wouldn't have been excited. But because everything that's happening in the DC universe, everything with the villains, and it feels like this is a solid connection to what I'm reading in the comics. So now, I'm definitely more into it.
I hope they use footage from it, little snippets or clips like that, as a way to draw in a casual crowd. YouTube them or something like, go viral with it. I'm not saying put the whole documentary viral. I'm saying, take snippets of it as a way to draw people into Forever Evil, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely.
Because I think there's an opportunity to get some people perked up, and I think to not utilize it that way would be a big misstep. Actually, before we jump onto the next segment, there's one other thing I want to talk about: Zod. He has a Villains Month one-shot coming out where his origin's going to be revealed.
Yes.
And that'll be his New 52 debut. I liked it. Again, you're telling an origin in a way where we're going to be talking about the early years and his relationship with Jor-El, very young. Something that we really haven't seen developed in this capacity in recent times. I would love to see that. I think it's great. But we're also going to be seeing the character in Superman Wonder Woman, that upcoming title, which I'm super excited about. And Superman Earth 1 Volume 3 is also going to have another version of Zod.
Yeah, we're getting some pretty good Zod coming out there. And with that Superman Wonder Woman, they're not getting rid of the Superman Batman title, right?
No. This is going to be...
I thought it was an additional title, not a replacement title. And those are, three big news with the Superman universes. I was like, I get hit one after another. I was like, oh my God, yes, yeah. Just kind of, the Superman Wonder Woman 1. Then I get more, I get Zod. Hey, you get Zod times 2 because you're going to get him New 52, plus you're going to get Earth 1 Zod. So, yeah, this was really cool moments because I really dig Zod. I think, and I'm curious to see how he's going to play out, where he's coming from, just the psychology of Zod.
Yeah, and I think it's a good time to be I actually, it's kind of funny. We're into the end of 2 years are coming up of the new 52, and there's characters that are just being introduced now. And I'm actually really glad that they've been taking their time and gradually introducing characters when they make sense instead of dropping them all on us, all with brand new origins, and kind of over-saturating us with that. Because I think we would have gone, like, I think I would have been origined out, if that makes sense. Whereas the way that we've kind of been doing this, where certain characters, they didn't need to tell their origins, or like Batman, we're getting the 0 year now. It just seems to be working the way that they're doing this. I'm liking the balance, and it's really helping my comic reading to not have all of that going on at the same time, but it being gradual. Because I'm more interested in seeing a new person, like, oh, cool, they're going to this guy now. I'm into it more that way because it is a little bit more judicious.
Well, and you think about, like, with introducing villains and whatnot, we're finally going to see Doomsday.
Yeah.
We're going to see the new 52 Doomsday in this Villains Month. And you think back to when they first started announcing, when they first said they were doing this, at the cons, I remember everyone was asking, hey, what about Doomsday? Did Superman actually die? What happened there? Who is, and they kept saying, we're not going to retell. We're just going to, as it comes out, we're going to bring it and as these characters. So I'm really glad we're now getting that Doomsday. We're going to learn about Doomsday. We're going to learn how he was in this universe. They're not going to probably retell the death of Superman story, I'm assuming. I'm assuming they're going to talk to us about and tell us about Doomsday. Who is Doomsday in this universe? And I'm very excited to see that, just because I want to know what this version is like. And it's the same thing with Zod. These are characters that I'm like, these are great villains. These are great adversaries to Superman. I want to know who they are.
Yeah, I do too. And I think this is the time for us to spend a month really looking at these characters and moving forward. I'm very into it.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
Hi, Sean and Jim. It's Lee Thompson. I'm ringing from Newcastle in England. I'm a great fan of your show, and I absolutely love it. I look forward to it each week when it comes out. It's just tremendous. I don't have a specific point about a comic or the fantastic Man of Steel movie. I love the show, incidentally. It's more a general point on the just the content and the tone of your show. It's superb. It's very sort of uplifting. It's always positive. And sometimes I find in the comic book forums or sci-fi forums, there's a tendency towards this isn't very good. Why this is bad? Why my hero is better than your hero? Why Star Wars is better than Star Trek? Why DC is better than Marvel, etc. And to be honest, I don't really enjoy those kind of debates. I genuinely don't. I like to discuss the things I like, not worry about the things I don't like. And that's exactly why your show is just superb. You always find the positive in everything. Even if you're not really enjoying a comic as much as you would like, you find something good in the characters, you find something good in the artwork, you find something even good in the colouring. And many times I've gone back to a comic I previously dropped because you've just engaged my interest and you made me go back to something. You made me see it in a different way, and it's just so nice to hear someone talk about something that I genuinely love and has been a passion of mine and my brother's for over 35 years. And you always show the good side, a new perspective, and just as a little aside, after your excellent issue on the final issue of Jeff Johns' final issue of Green Lantern, which was just tremendous, one of the best comics I've ever read, for the first and probably the only time in my life, I thought I'd write to a creator and thank him just for his great work in it. Of course, it was Mr. Jeff Johns, and I probably wouldn't have done this had it not been for your show. So I wrote him just a one-page letter, just saying how much I enjoyed, how brilliant his work had been. And to my complete and utter surprise, he actually sent something back. He actually sent back a Green Lantern Rebirth graphic novel signed, and most touchingly of all, as I had mentioned it in my letter, he sent a New 52 Hal Jordan Green Lantern for my son. who incidentally is called Hal, which gives you a clue as to how big a Green Lantern fan I am. And my daughter's Iris, so you can spot the Flash link there. So this is how much I love these characters. So keep it going, gents. You're doing great work. It's a genuine pleasure to listen to you each week. I'm a committed fan, and thank you so much for the time and effort you put in. Cheers, gents. You've made someone in the UK very happy indeed.
It's funny just hearing you talk and your excitement about the letter that you sent to Jeff Johns. I'm like, it's one of the things I love about podcasting, because with the fact that we're able to, through this digital medium, connect and to be able to chat and things like that, we're really like-minded in the kind of fans that we are. And like you said, we all have maybe different favorite heroes or things like that, but we all connect in a genuine joy and love for this. This is our escape. This is our, the thing that brings joy into our life. And, to the point where you're naming your children after your favorite characters. And I think that's awesome. I just think it's something that's really cool about fandom. I love the fact that you took the time to write that letter and send it to Jeff Johns and that he acknowledged it. I think creators nowadays are just amazing in the fact that you take a look at how busy their load has to be. And the amount that they're reaching out to fans through your story, through social media in general. You see the amount of creators that are really trying to make time to do as much as they can to connect with fans. I just find that really impressive. I think it's something we all have wanted, that kind of interactivity. And I really appreciate that they've embraced it too. But those personal gifts, I just think, was something that was neat. And I'm very happy for you that you had that experience, because it just, to me, is what makes fandom great. And I'm glad that we're all connecting through podcasting and through just being able to share in the conversation. So thanks for that call. And actually, just want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434. Or Dr. Norge on Skype. And please feel free to call in any time. I love that Lee called in. I love hearing from friends of the show and just being able to have this kind of interactive dialogue. I just think it's one of the great things about the audio medium. It's so easy nowadays to do this. So thanks for calling in, Lee.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
Jim, I'd like to talk in our next segment about the big event, Trinity War, which we're going to do an episode next. Our next episode, one of the big focuses in our segment is going to be on the released issues so far of Trinity War. This has been the building block. And when Trinity War was first announced as a picture, when we saw that, I looked at it as being like the first kind of Justice League crossover. I thought it was going to be more small scale. When I say small scale, it was going to be Justice League of America, and Justice League Dark because of the characters that were in there. Having no idea that then that was going to lead to Villains Month, Forever Evil, all this stuff that it's leading to. Huge events. And then obviously more with Pandora.
Yeah. Well, you think about just when we first started talking about this, how far off I was. And I will fully admit I was far off because I was thinking this is going to be a Magic story. No, it's not. This is a story of the Justice Leagues. Yes, Magic has a part in it, but it's not. Yeah, I was thinking this whole thing was going to be, a Magic Direction story and yada yada whatnot, and I was completely wrong and off on that.
Well, I think you're being a little hard on yourself, actually, because I'll defend you a little bit here. If you take a look at, though, the guiding premise of it and what happened with Pandora and Pandora's box and what that unleashed onto the world, it is a Magic story at its foundation, and the huge ramifications come out of that. So you're not as far off. These characters that you're talking about, Pandora, The Question, and Phantom Stranger, I think the thing is, we were thinking Trinity War, I think we were, you're taking a look at this and it looks like the battle between the three different Justice Leagues, and that's very true, but I think it's going to be the battle, and they're saying it's going to be the battle of three different ideologies that are led by these three different beings. I'm really into the whole story so far. The manipulation that's going on there. You've got this outsider character who, boy, I guess I don't know how we can't not talk about some of this. As we're
I know.
I don't want to do too much of a dance. I think we should maybe put additional spoiler warning here. You and I have both read Trinity of Sin, Pandora.
Yeah.
We've also read the Justice League Kickoff and Justice League of America.
Yeah.
At this point. So I want to put a disclaimer. If you haven't read those first initial 3 parts, we haven't read Justice League Dark was just released today. We have not read that yet.
Right.
So if you haven't read those 3 issues, you may want to stop here and come back when you have, because I don't know how we can talk about this panel and not at least discuss it. To kind of tap dance and pretend we haven't read that is really silly at this point. But I also don't want to ruin that for anybody. So this might be a good point to hit pause and come back when you're ready to discuss this panel. So we'll put a little disclaimer on this one. So let's go to it. They talked about on the panel Superman killing
Dr. Light. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I love that. You know what? It was one of those things where when they first introduced him and he was with the Justice League of America, and he wasn't a villain. He wasn't this pervert monster. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. What are they doing? They introduced him just to kill him off by Superman. I was like, ooh, that's nice. That's a good usage of him. And it's just going to lead to what's going to happen next. Because Dr. Light is married with children, and Superman kills him. I was just like, oh, my God. And obviously, Superman, it wasn't an intentional thing. It was one of those things where this big bad villain manipulated the circumstances. He knew with Dr. Light's power of absorption and just of pulling the light automatically, when he's put right in the same room as this giant solar battery, there's gonna be problems. And immediately Clark couldn't control it. Light couldn't control the powers, and it looks exactly like Clark just hits him with the heat vision. Boom! No more Dr. Light. I was like, wow, holy crud, that is awesome.
Here's my question, and I think we need to go to it now, and we can discuss this a little bit more lightly next episode, because I kind of don't want to avoid this. Who's the outsider?
Yeah, exactly. Part of me wonders, is he one of the character crossover from the Flashpoint? I can't remember the one character who kind of had the outsider, wasn't he called the outsider in the Flashpoint?
Yes, but
is he the same person, or is he the new 52 version of that character?
Well, and
is it just the same name, or is it the same person?
In the classic story in Batman, the outsider was Alfred. Now, I don't think it's our Alfred now, but I've seen speculate. I'm not going to take full credit for all of this, other than that I knew that story, and I've read that story in the showcase volumes. But, some speculation online that I've heard is this is the introduction of the Earth 3, some of the Earth 3 characters.
Okay.
Which was the Crime Syndicate world.
Right.
Which could be a possibility here.
So this could be Earth 3 Alfred?
Or it could be our Alfred, with recent issues having, made him snap finally or something like that, or, have is a second personality that has developed out of it, except the mustache is missing, which is strange. Where does you don't all of a sudden become a bad guy part-time and lose your mustache? So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. He's an interesting character. There could be no link at all. This could be a totally new developed character just for the purpose of this story. And a lot of what I'm going off of is based on the cards that Madame Xanadu was throwing down before she blowed up.
Yeah.
And I was really liking the play out of that story. But this outsider is an interesting character. I like when you've got a villain who you don't really know what his powers are. He's kind of an enigma.
Yeah.
And they've really done a great job of crafting him.
Well, and everything they're crafting with Pandora. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that I immediately feel for her. And she, complete sympathy for her and what's going on in her life, that she's blamed for unleashing evils on Earth. But in reality, is it really her fault? Is she being wrongly persecuted, wrongly accused? She was penalized for something that she really didn't have any control over.
Curiosity.
Yeah. But even Curiosity, she just looked and said, hey, what's this? She didn't know what she was doing. She didn't intentionally say, I will open this box, or no one told her, don't open that.
Right.
All she did was pick the thing up and boom.
Yeah. And actually, she's, in a wink and a nod from the wizard, that's acknowledged.
Yeah.
Which this becomes an interesting little problem moving forward. But this Trinity Wars, this event goes on. This whole thing's happened, and Pandora now is trying to put back the evil that she's unleashed. She goes to Superman first. That doesn't work out. Now, I'm wondering if that didn't work out with Superman because of the fact that Superman has something inside him. Someone's controlling him from the inside. And that's why it didn't work from him. That corruption that was inside pulling his puppet strings was...
Could be.
I'm wondering if that was the issue that he had. I don't know. We'll have to see as the story moves forward. But the resolution of this story is the villains will win, is at least the way that it looks like. Trinity War leads into Forever Evil. Villains are going to be divided over how they feel about all this. Because some of them like the Justice League at the top of the food chain, they were saying, because of the fact that it keeps things simple. But then there's going to be other villains that are going to be like, this is our chance. Sinestro and Black Adam, I like the fact they're going to be teamed up. We're going to be getting Arkham War, a tie-in that sees the Blackgate prisoners go up against the Arkham inmates. And, there's going to be a whole bunch of, like, Rogues Rebellion and Argus tie-in. We're going to be getting a whole bunch of stuff coming in where we're going to be seeing different facets of the DC universe. One of the things that was pretty surprising to me was, did I read this right, that Dr. Fate is going to be appearing during the Trinity War? How is that happening?
Again, and it was really cool where they just said, yeah, he's going to be there. They talk about just the panel. I guess it's going to be like a 2-page spread where he comes in and just, I'm honestly really looking forward to that. I want to see that. And I think it's coming in...
Justice League Dark 23, I think is where they said.
I'm pretty sure they said Dark.
Yeah, Justice League Dark number 23, because I think it was Lemire who said it. It's going to be issue number 23. So not this month, it'll be next month. Because this month's it'll be August, that we'll be finally seeing that. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and it was funny because they talk about how the Trinity War kind of like comparison to Infinite Crisis. Mm-hmm. And just, this whole thing is this this changing of the universe. And I really, I so want to see the villains win, because when you think about, Final Crisis came out, they were, plugging up is what happens when the villains win. And yeah, we got it, but it didn't completely go. I actually would like to see a universe and just see it happen where the villains win and even run. I would be comfortable with them running a couple months under the villains' rule. And just seeing how this goes, and just one of those great challenges to the heroes. I love seeing. Normally, I always have questions and issues when they get the big hero groups fighting each other. I'm like, come on, you're all heroes. You're not supposed to fight. But I love how this thing has been playing out, how we are getting a puppet master, how we're getting things get manipulated. And it just one quick, escalation, one spark sets everything in motion. And once it gets going, it's very hard to stop the forward motion. It's really, when you start swinging, when you start punching, hitting, blasting, shooting arrows and whatnot, it's kind of hard to stop what you're doing. And I love seeing that play out in this stuff. And when they're talking about just how this is going to go, where the dynamics of these different groups and of these different people, we're forever changing stuff with these characters.
And I guess they said what's going to happen is that throughout this Forever Evil series, you're going to see the 3 Justice Leagues forming into new teams.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be organic in the series. So... the division between them. And I love that Zatanna and Constantine, I think their development since the beginning of the New 52 through the Zero issue, straight on through, has been one of the more interesting stories. So for me to see those two come to a head and everything we've been seeing, I'm glad that throughout the Steve Trevor and Diana, that tension and the reveal of the relationship with Superman and him building a Justice League, I love that everything we've been seeing all the way through, because it's built so slowly for us as readers and gradually the way that it should, there's more meaning to these stories playing out during this event because there's something that we've cared about seeing follow-ups to along the way. So I'm excited for this as an event because of the fact that it's been built gradually in such a satisfying way. Jim, we have to talk about the one thing on the table, Nightwing, the rumor.
Yeah.
Like, how accurate do you think the rumor is, or one of the rumors on the table, I don't know how true it is, Nightwing dying. How much faith do you put into that? What does that mean to, you? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, I don't think we're going to lose Nightwing. I don't think we're going to lose Dick Grayson. And it's, the one line in the panel, Jeff Johns says have faith.
Right.
I don't think he's going to kill off Nightwing. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to Nightwing, but I there have been too many times when they always say they're going to kill off Nightwing that I can't see them doing it. I hope they don't do it because I really like Nightwing. I like the character. I like how he plays off of the other characters off of the other teams, etc. And part of me wonders if we're going to see Nightwing assuming a Batman type role within one of the Justice Leagues. Are we going to see Nightwing in Justice League of America as opposed to Catwoman?
I don't necessarily want to see that. And I think we might actually see, if we do see a death of Nightwing, we're going to see it done in the premise of the storyline, and however they undo the villain control will be what brings Nightwing back, per se, if that happens at all. Here's the reason why I don't want to see him necessarily. I guess I wouldn't mind him being a member of one of those teams as Nightwing.
Yeah.
But I think, to me, the Kyle Higgins book right now is pretty darn near perfect. The stories that he's developing, the solo adventures of Nightwing's developing his own role in the world. And I'm really digging that book, and it's a successful title. I don't know that you necessarily need to bring him onto one of those teams, because you've got Batman already filling that role. I don't mind seeing them do it temporarily during this storyline or something like that. I don't know that I necessarily need him there. Let me pull back and say, if that's what happens, I'll love it, because and more Nightwing's great, and under the right helming, that'd be awesome. I don't necessarily need to see him become Batman again, though, or like you said, Batman-like.
Yeah,
because
he
I think
still will be Nightwing, but he'll fill that kind of Batman role of the team. Is what I'm saying. I'm not saying he'll put on the cape and the cowl. He'll be on the team as Nightwing, but it'll be one of those. He'll have the kind of role that Batman always had in the Justice League. Nightwing will have in Justice League of America
in place of Catwoman.
In place of Catwoman, yeah.
Yeah. I guess I like Catwoman in that role so much, but we already know. Here, wait, I'm actually going to defend you. But we know that those teams are going to be changing up during this event, so who knows? There is an opening for what you're saying. So I don't know. I don't know what route it's going to go. Let me put it this way. I will be giddy for any news that Nightwing is going to be anything after this event's over. So if that's the way it turns out, I will be happy. Anything other than worm food is perfectly fine for me for Nightwing. So especially...
Nightwing is preferable.
As long as Kyle Higgins has the ability to write him in some capacity.
Yes, I do not want to lose the Nightwing Monthly, because that, again, that is an absolutely wonderful story that I am deeply enjoying.
Yeah, that's a great book. So whatever game they're playing right now is all well and fine for me, as long as we still got the Kyle Higgins book.
Now, here's a question for you, and this is something I really do like Constantine. It's to the point where he's that wonderful, son of a gun that makes Justice League Dark that little twisted in the, Justice League Dark. I just, I like the fact that they don't like the name of it, but it so fits them now. What if he leaves Justice League Dark? What if we lose Constantine off of that book?
But that would mean he would go on one of the other books.
Yeah. What if, John Constantine was in the Justice League or Justice League of America or flying solo and not on a book? What if Zatanna takes over Justice League Dark and she is the leader? She is running the show. Because they talk about those two coming to head and she gets her just dues. Maybe that's her just dues. Maybe she's like, hey, you're out of here. You're no longer in charge of this. This is my team now. I'm going to run it the way it should be run. And we get more of a hero style to Justice League Dark, where we get this magic universe, these magic heroes fighting for the good fight, as opposed to Constantine fighting for, he's helping people, he's saving the world, but he's also helping himself. What if we get Constantine pushed off the team?
I think his unique focus is what drives that team to go to different places. And it's what separates them from Justice League of America and Justice League. I think that he's the glue that holds the concept together. I'm not saying that a superhero book featuring Zatanna and all that wouldn't be good. But I see her, because of exactly what you're saying, Zatanna leading that team would make it more of a superhero team. Zatanna belongs on one of the other two teams, or partnering with Constantine or something like that, which I don't see her doing after this. Although I really liked her in that book a great deal.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
So I guess I wouldn't have an issue. But Constantine running that team, I really dig.
Yeah, and I dig it as well. I'm not knocking it or saying he should go, but if we're talking about changing up the teams, shifting some stuff around, to me, I would say that would be the biggest change on Justice League Dark.
But I think
is getting rid of Constantine and having it shift more to a hero focused.
But if you're talking
the Magic Universe,
Jim, if you're talking three different philosophies though that are going to drive these teams, if there's one person who I think would be a central component of a philosophy, it would be John Constantine.
Oh God, yeah, I completely agree with you.
So I think it's more likely that the people who disagree with him are going to leave than him being the one that leaves, if that makes sense. And I think he's going to be surrounded by people who maybe don't necessarily like him but agree with the philosophy.
And you know what? I wouldn't have an issue with that. I'll be being blunt. I wouldn't have, because I am enjoying what I'm reading from Justice League Dark. I'm enjoying Constantine in that book, and I'm enjoying him in his solo title. So I wouldn't have an issue with it. But part of me wonders if you think about the Trinity War, where they're saying how people with like minds are going to go together, and that's what they're saying with the restructuring, and we're going to see shifting among the team. It always just makes me wonder what's going to happen, where the shift's going to happen.
But do you think, by what you're saying, though, you're saying that Zatanna has more of a superheroic philosophy. So doesn't that in and of itself mean that she would be more inclined to side with characters like the Flash, with characters, like that would more skew towards the Justice League?
Right.
So why would she be on a separate team as opposed to being on that team?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. It's part of me. I don't know.
I mean, it's more of, I think your point's well made, but I think that your point points to the fact that she would skew towards one of those other teams.
Yeah, she would shift away from Dark, and then now who would shift into Dark though? That's who would go into Justice League Dark from the other two Justice League teams? Who could shift over to Dark now? Maybe
Hawkman,
yeah. He could definitely do a shift over. I don't know.
Except you know what? I like him so much on Justice League of America.
I know. I don't want to
see. This is
just
the real.
Just like Catwoman, I wouldn't want to see her going over there, but she could, in a way, shift over. But I like her where she's at.
I think we have to see the events unfold in the Trinity War storyline before, because I don't think we have a full understanding of the philosophies yet. Yeah. And what will make people drift towards set philosophies. So I don't think we're there yet. It's funny how I'm really anxious to read today's Justice League Dark for that purpose. I want to see more of these philosophies unfold. So do you think you have I think it's too soon in the story to have an understanding of the philosophies yet, right?
Oh God, yeah. It's still a growth and development of it.
So I might backpedal on my comments about Constantine after reading the philosophy. I go, oh, okay, Jim might have a point here. There's an opening there. I don't know. Characters like the Question who don't know themselves. Like, he doesn't know who he is. But yet, I'm assuming he's going to be a catalyst for the third philosophy, right?
On the panel, they talked about, Johns was saying how Constantine plays a huge role, and the Mirror followed up with his superpower is that he's so corrupted that he can't actually be more corrupted. He's already there, and I think that is kind of a line of it. And part of me wonders, maybe he's the catalyst for sealing Pandora's box. Maybe he's the catalyst for.
Well, but the Question though is one of those characters that I have because he's the third of the Trinity. Oh. So I guess my question is, there's three different members of the Trinity. Are you taking that the people are going to rally behind each one of them as a philosophy, or is that too simple?
I think I don't know. Again, it's one of those where is the Trinity the three Justice League groups? Is the Trinity the three, Pandora, Question, Phantom Stranger? Is the Trinity three different, viewpoints where, truth, justice, American way or whatnot? I don't know. Is it what's the what is the three? And I think that's going to be the key. Part of me thinks that it's the three philosophies of those three characters, Pandora, the Phantom Stranger, and the Question. They are going to be the basis of the three, philosophies. But I'm not exactly sure what those philosophies are. You have Phantom Stranger, who betrays, who is betrayal. You've got Pandora, who, innocence, maybe wrongly convicted, and then you have the Question, who is the mystery. Yeah, It's funny because as much as we've read, as much as we've seen, as much as I've thought and discussed this stuff, I still don't know. And I kind of like that.
I do too.
It's one of the things I'm really enjoying about this story and how it's playing out. We're really close to getting to the Forever Evil stuff, and we still don't know where it's going to go. They've introduced to the big bad is, but we don't even know who this guy is. They've showed us the outsider. They've showed us that there is this power, manipulating the scenes, but we really don't know where it's coming from. And I think that's a great story being played out, and I think it's not going to be until the very last page of the last issue that we're going to see everything, that we're going to have the oh my god moment, and the building anticipation of that has me kind of giddy.
What do you think about Justice League 3000? That was mentioned at the panel in passing because people were asking about the possibility of a future Justice League, and that's the Giffen, DeMatteis, and McGuire book, right?
I guess. I didn't know who that was. I never.
Oh, you didn't see the news? You haven't seen the news for that yet?
No.
Oh, there is actually going to be a Justice League set in the future, a Justice League 3000 book written by Giffen, DeMatteis, and Kevin McGuire.
Okay. I did not know that. I saw on the one panel where they talked about Justice League, DC 1 million, and the Justice League 3000, but there was never anything about. I never saw any definite that they're going to do this.
Oh yeah. No, that's been news for a while. And they've actually shown. You can find it on DC sites. They've shown character drawings of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and Justice League in the year 3000.
In the year 3000. Oh, cool. Now, when does Legion of Superheroes take place?
Well, see, this is part of the thing, because Legion's coming to an end.
Oh, okay.
So, as a part of Legion coming to an end, they announced some books that were going to be coming out, and one of them was Justice League 3000. So, we'll see what's going to happen with that. Because, this would be... I don't know if it's fair to call this in place of the Legion book, because I think the Legion book takes place further in the future.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens with Justice.
You think about it, probably, I can imagine that they want to do a future story, but maybe Legion of Superheroes, like, if you think about it, I was long to get into Legion of Superheroes. It took me a while to actually really start reading and understand and become, deeply care about those characters, and I really enjoy and I understand the fiery passion that people have for Legion of Superheroes. Mm-hmm. Now, when we first started doing this show, if they had announced Justice League 3000, I would have jumped on it in a heartbeat, where I was slow to get into Legion of Superheroes. I think it's character recognition that gets people jumped into it and gets people reading it. So again, I'm curious to see it. I'll read it. And, when I was reading in the one panel, review about it, I was like, oh, that'd be probably a neat concept. But I didn't know it was actually out there. So now that I know it's actually out there, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'll pick it up.
Now, the Legion story takes place in the 30th and the 31st centuries of the DC universe. And I'm looking at Wikipedia for this one because I didn't remember. I didn't remember what the centuries were of the Legion when they took place. So this would take place after the Justice League 3000. So I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for the Legion. Now that series is going to be coming to a close. I hope we do eventually get more Legion because I'm into them. I'm very into them.
God, yeah,
I'm glad that this isn't in place of Legion.
Right.
Jim, why don't we take a look at that? They did a Batman panel on the 0 year.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things I really liked about this panel was we got an explanation as far as why 0 year. Because I remember when the New 52 started, Snyder was quoted in interviews as saying that he thought Miller's Year One was a story that was in canon and should stick. But then that changed when he started to see more and more how the histories had been changed. And I could imagine trying to take somebody else's story, like Year One, an epic, something that like really defined an era, and to try and like do your own kind of hybrid of your own ideas with that story would be very limiting, and also would just kind of feel like an unsatisfying version of that story. So that led to the creation of this 0 year, where they're doing their own Year One, but for the New 52.
Yeah.
And doing their own story and really kind of crafting their own tale. I didn't realize that the 0 year was going to go to this level, where it now is going to be the full, like, starting of Batman that way. I like that. I like that it's going that route. I like that we're getting these flashbacks. I like that every story has, Snyder and Tynion working together with these backup features that are telling gradual pieces of the puzzle, and that we're getting flashback sequences and everything that are kind of filling us into the whole story. I'm finding it to be very, very satisfying in its development. How are you feeling about it so far, though? Is this what do you find yourself comparing it to Year One? Do you find it comparing to other origins that you've dealt with Batman before? Or are you just enjoying the ride and liking the new storytelling? Are you somewhere in the middle? Where are you at on this?
Oh, I'm digging the story, and I'm loving the ride. And it was funny because I was wondering how they're going to do with connection to Year One, and is that going to be canon? Because I remember them saying, "Hey, it should be." But this was something that I was really glad to see from the panel, where Snyder flat out explained, "Hey, I tried to. It didn't work." And and it's funny because he says directly, said it sucked. It just sucked. He's like, it just didn't work with a lot of characters and the changing history, and it was impossible for it to happen. And I'm glad the fact that he admitted that, hey, I tried, I wasn't able to. We got to go with something new, from the ground up. And if it was again. If it was anybody other than Snyder, I would have issues. But, his writing style, his creation of Batman, and even, Tynion, with him, doing backup stories as well. These are two writers that I'm comfortable with. I like their style. I like their flow. So the fact that they're doing this, I'm okay with it. If it had been some no-name guy that I had no idea who he was, I would be miffed. This would be a completely different conversation. I would say, hey, if you couldn't do it, get somebody else who could. Get rid of the bum. Well, the writer who's telling us, hey, I had to do this, isn't a bum. He's talented. He's an amazing writer. I enjoy his work. So guess what? Yes, Frank Miller's Year One was fabulous. I enjoy reading it, and I probably will reread it again another time or watch the movie again, and just for sheer enjoyment of it. But sometimes you got to move forward. Sometimes you got to change stuff around. And this is a story that I'm going through, I'm reading, and I'm loving. And I can imagine when this whole story arc is done, I'm going to go back again from the first issue of it through to the end and just reread again. And this is a story that I'm going to get collected. I'm already planning on when they collect it, I'm going to get this just because I'm liking the ride so far.
What do you think about the Riddler focus?
Well, I like it. Yeah, it's cool. And I like the fact that they talk about how with the Riddler, everyone shied away from it because, it's hard to write riddles and it's hard to do that. But, the concept of the riddle isn't just the play on words. It is the physical challenge. It is the intellect. It is, just a process. So you don't need to have cleverly worded, clues and whatnot. It goes beyond just a simple, why is, why is a six, why is 6 afraid of 9 or something like that, or I don't remember how the joke goes, but it goes beyond that stuff, and I'm glad to see that because Riddler is can be a really cool villain. That
why is 9 afraid of 7?
Thank you.
Because 7, 8, 9.
9.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're throwing it out there. Might as well.
And why is 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the joke, and that's the riddle, and but you don't need that style of writing with the Riddler, and I'm glad to see that we're not getting that. And we will probably get some riddles. We will get some clever, intelligent.
I think we're going to get lots of riddles.
What?
I think we're going to get lots of riddles.
Yeah, but it's not just going to be about the riddle, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's actually because he's the one he used in the panel. He said, "Why was 9 afraid of 7?"
Yeah.
is the one he used in the panel. And, I mean, there's been different variations of that classic one. But Snyder, I think, is one of those writers that, first of all, you're taking a character like the Riddler who needs to be reimagined and brought back and kind of set up for the New 52, because he had big continuity changes prior to the New 52, where he was sort of a good guy, then became bad, then, I mean, it was kind of hard to figure out where the character would be at in the New 52. Don't get me wrong, I loved what they were doing with him prior to the New 52. I'm not knocking that. But when you've done that much with the character beforehand and you've now reimagined the universe, I want to know where's the Riddler at in all of that. And that's one of the great things about this story, because it's going to tell us, where is the Riddler? How does he fit into this world? So this is our introduction to who he is now in this world. I also like that it plays directly into Bruce's extended family, his mother's side of the family, which, if you're going to flesh out a world, you got to sit there and make it, Bruce can't be the only family member in this world. There's going to be other people. We find out in this story why he doesn't associate with them. Like, I get it now, and there's major ramifications between the relationship now that are really going to throw things off there. And I like that kind of stuff. I feel like that makes this story feel more real, and I'm into that.
Yeah, it's a development of the Bat, where he comes from. This is a cool time to put it in, as we're 2 years into the new universe.
Right.
So this is, again, wonderful pacing, wonderful timing to do this, because we've had these major mega stories that hit Bruce, everything from, Court of Owls, death of the family, everything that's hit, that Bruce has been hit with, to go into this story, I thought was a really neat timing for it. Especially, you think about just, with the death of Damien, and all the other titles are really doing heavy focus on the grieving, the process. We go into this for the Batman title. I thought that was a cool usage of this title and the cool timing for it.
By the way, the Scribblenauts game was called Scribblenauts Unmasked. That's going to be the name of that one that I mentioned earlier. And I think that's going to be a fun game. It's a Scribblenauts Unmasked, a DC Comics adventure. And that's September 24th that's coming out. And like I said, there's a video on DC's site that shows Jim Lee and Jeff Johns playing around with the Hero Creator. Jim, can we jump a little bit to a discussion about, we talked about DC Digital. Mm-hmm. There's some cool things that are coming up in, like, Smallville. Like, we're bringing Wonder Woman into the series. We've had Batman brought in. We've had Wonder Woman brought in. How do you, we're having Wonder Woman brought in. You're reading that series through single issues, right?
Yeah, I'm reading a paper right now. Probably going to eventually shift to digital on that one as well, but I haven't made the jump over yet.
They announced that there's going to be a comic of DC Digital, Beware the Batman, and Teen Titans Go, which are going to be ongoings. They're doing a Vampire Diaries weekly series. They're going to be doing a Scooby-Doo Batman and Robin team-up book. Scooby-Doo meets, the full title is Scooby-Doo meets Batman and Robin, kind of a wink and a nod to that old classic, book. More stories coming with the Adventures of Superman and stuff, but this is really coming out of the fact that these digital titles are becoming more and more successful for DC. And I'm thrilled with that, because I like that delivery. I don't like it in place of the full-blown paper comics. I like it as an addition, an enhancement, something add-on, to take advantage of the digital format. To me, I'm going to say it again, I look at that as hopefully being a way for that to be the new newsstand. Because I think that's something that's sorely missing from comics, is that launching platform for the casual fan. And there's a possibility of that maybe taking over that role. I hope, because I would like to see that.
This is the first I'm seeing of the Scooby-Doo one. I'll be honest with you, when you said it, I started chuckling, and I kind of want to read that.
I do, because I enjoyed so much the Batman 66 one that, for me, I have a lot of faith in these. There's like a diversity to what's being done in the digital. They're kind of a fun, you always use palate cleansers on the show. They're a fun break from continuity. It's fun to just kind of read some of those books, And just know that they're not in continuity. They're just great stories that are unique that can be only told in those digital books because they're not in continuity. And sometimes that's just fun to read those things. It fills the spot of like a Tiny Titans for me and stuff like that, where I liked those books for the same reason. And they're diverse enough. Go ahead.
Now, with that Vampire Diaries series, is that going to be based off of like the TV show Vampire Diaries, or is it something completely different?
The TV show.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing. I mean, I don't, I can't, I'm not going to say 100% know that, but they threw that out there without a whole lot of explanation. And I'm taking that because they're just assuming people.
Well, yeah, because it's the same. It's all, WB. So it's all the, the parent and. Now, the big question is when you get Scooby-Doo meets Batman and Robin, and you read it, are you going to read it with the Scooby voice?
No.
That will just be me then, because I guarantee you I'll be doing it. Yeah. Anytime Scooby-Doo speaks, I will be doing a Scooby voice, and I'll do a zoinks, for Shaggy, etc.
We can almost do a separate podcast of you reading that book aloud. That actually would be fun. Like, we could actually do a podcast where, like, I'm talking about regular comics, and you're reading that book.
If I could do a better Shaggy, I would. I can't do a Shaggy at all. And I think it's, he's got such a distinctive voice. He needs somebody who can do the Shaggy voice. Mm-hmm. I can do the Scooby-Doo. No problem. But you need someone to do Shaggy. Mm-hmm. So you got to work on that. You start working on the Shaggy. I'll read Scooby parts. You read Shaggy parts.
Because you've nailed your Scooby-Doo.
I think I've nailed it. In my head, I'm doing perfect.
Your head's a scary place. We're well aware of that.
Oh, yeah.
One of the most exciting panels for me, and I guess because I didn't know this was coming, was Vertigo Defy. My frustration as a Vertigo fan has been that the line has kind of become watered down. And let me clarify that. The quality of the books has been there, but it hasn't been the same amount of output. Like Vertigo used to have just a wide range of diverse titles, and great books have been published. So I want to, when I say watered down, let me really clarify that, how much I really enjoy the books that have been published by Vertigo right now. I love books like The Unwritten Fable, stuff like that. I'm into it. It's cool. So that's not a knock. But we need more books out of that line. This Vertigo Define thing about, about creators kind of defying normal conventions and telling the kind of stories that, you previously would be afraid to tell in comics. I just think it's really a cool concept. The lineup is really diverse, and there's so many of them that I'm deeply interested in. Now, I don't know how much you read. I'm assuming you read the panel highlights.
Yeah.
You, I know, are a lot more of a casual Vertigo fan than me. Like me, I'm literally sitting there saying, what am I not... my question is more of a, what am I not going to read out of this? Whereas in your case, did you find titles that you were interested in trying out in this line?
Well, here's what I did with Vertigo. And I've done this in the past, and it's when I made my big cuts, because I had to cut titles, and I cut titles solely because of costs. Nothing to do with quality, nothing to do with anything. Vertigo got the big axe because, again, I was able to separate, it wasn't, they're not part of the regular DCU. I was able to separate it. I cut a lot of titles that are non-DC just for that same reason. I had to cut down the number of titles I was getting purely for a financial reason. So when I see this stuff and I read it, I'm like, I want to read that. But I'm like, I got to pick a title in the DC universe that I have to cut to get this Vertigo title. And there are some stuff in here that, anything, with the vampire stuff, any of the American Vampire, that anthology they were talking about, I was like, oh, that looks good. And just all these different stuff.
So wait, are you not reading American Vampire?
No, I'm not. And it was painful.
Wow.
It was very painful, very difficult for me to do that, but I had to make the cut. Yeah, and it's again, you heard me rant on how much I love Snyder's writing. And for me to cut the title, because I had, you got to make the choice, and it was painful, and I want to go back to it. And then I keep thinking, well, I'll start getting the, trades and stuff like that. But I got a very strict budget that when new titles come in, if they're not cutting titles, I got to make the cut.
Yeah.
So it's, so Vertigo was one of those titles that got a big chopping block. So I'm reading all these titles. American Vampire Anthology. I was like, holy crud, that sounds awesome.
See, for me, I look at a lot of these titles with them being new series to launch that I want to try the first few issues, especially the creative talent. Jeff Lemire, you heard me rant and rave about Sweet Tooth. That Trillium, that flip book thing, where it's a flip book, and there's two stories, but they meet in the middle, where they're two different characters. So, like, you'll be reading about one character in the beginning. There's a guy and a girl who are going to, over time, fall in love with each other. One's a scientist from the deep future. The other one's an explorer in the recent past. And they'll meet. Depending on which way you read the story first will depend on where your focus is.
Yeah.
I think that's just like a wicked cool concept. I mean, a flip book.
Yeah.
And, he said the first one's going to be a flip book, but he's trying to play around in every issue with something like that in the format of the storytelling. So that might not be the way every issue goes, but he's going to play around with the storytelling format to tell comic stories in a different way that services the tale that he's trying to tell in a way that makes you go, wow, that was cool and neat. I'm into that. Fables, for me, is one of those titles I could never drop in a million years. I'm loving that there's more Fables. I like the idea that there's a Unwritten crossover where Bill Willingham and the writer of Unwritten, which I'm drawing, I'm going to kick myself because I'm drawing a blank at the moment. They actually wrote for their respective artists, the other person's respective artists, I should say. So, like, Willingham wrote for the Unwritten book, and vice versa. So that way, the story would feel more like a fluid crossover for people who don't normally read the other books, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's a neat concept. Vertigo is one of those experimental. Liber Mayo, which you'll remember from the Lex Luthor miniseries.
Yeah.
And from things like Wednesday's Comics. He's going to be writing and drawing The Suiciders, set in Los Angeles after a giant earthquake where the city's left alone by most of the government. And in an attempt to revive their fortunes, the last vestiges of the Hollywood industry create a horrific reality TV show called The Suiciders. I mean, where it's going to be talking about the current... it's going to be like commentary on the current fascination with celebrity. A new Peter Milligan series, The Discipline, where it's going to be pushing all kinds of like crazy boundaries sexually and stuff like that. I think that's cool. There's just a lot of cool stuff that's being, developed from this line. And my problem, in all honesty, with the announcements, I was going through series after series after series. Dead Boy Detectives is going to have its own series. Grapple with the fact that these characters have been dead for years while staying 13 all that time.
Yeah.
This is stuff that, I'm like, this is different from what I'm currently reading. Now, where this will affect me budget-wise, I'm looking at this lineup and I'm like, whoa, there's a whole bunch of really wicked cool stuff coming out from Vertigo. I'm going to start taking a look at Across Comics, titles that I'm pulling from Across Comics, independent and other companies and things like that, and just start saying, how does this fit into what I'm already reading? Like, am I already reading another book that's like this? If I am, I'm going to chop this to make room for this, to try it. If that makes sense?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because I'm with you, you can only get so many books in your budget. I like to have a certain amount of indies because I just love the creativity of that. So I've got to keep that block protected. But, this will affect, my Valiant block is pretty protected right now because I'm really liking the output from Valiant. But this might affect me on some Marvel books, just in the sense where I love Marvel. I love the output that Marvel's putting out. But there might be some Marvel titles where I have to go, okay, this is like, this is my Marvel Batman or something like that. And so, maybe I'll chop this to make room for Trillium. Because Trillium I'm getting for sure. I mean, there's no way I'm not getting that. Jeff Lemire's been too good to me storytelling-wise, and it's been fantastic. I'm getting the American Vampire anthology project. Fables I'm continuing to read, so that doesn't really need a block for it, and I'm reading Ferris and stuff like that. Collider is one that I'm really interested in, where the physics in the world are broken, and there's a reason why it's broken, and Snyder was speaking up on this. It's Simon Oliver's book, but Snyder was speaking up and saying that, it's physics are deteriorating around the world. They gave me the first 3 issues, and I was worried, what if I read it and I don't like it? And he said it's amazing. So I'm kind of like, I'm interested in that. Coffin Hill, reimagining pop culture phenomenon like the Kennedy curse, but stretching the idea back into the Salem witch trials with a group of teenage girls. So and I'm into stuff where it happens over time, like curses that happen over time.
Yeah.
You know how I'm into time travel and history and all that kind of stuff. Well, this is kind of a story where I'm like, oh, they're going to kind of jump back through time and then, show that. That's something I'm liking in American Vampire right now. So I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on right now. That Hinterkind looks good because it's a fantasy book, and I've been reading Saga and digging it. Ian Edgington is doing the writing on this one, and it's a version of Earth years in the future where old fairy tale monsters and myth have taken back the Earth from man, but then humans make an attempt to carve out their own space in a world where warring factions of magical creatures tear each other apart. And, I'm into that. That sounds really cool. So this is a scary lineup, because to me it's more of I'm going to have trouble getting all of them, so I don't mean it like I'm just blatantly saying I'm going to get all of them, but I might be doing a lot of, maybe that month I will try to find an extra budget to try to get all the one issue, say issue number 1, and kind of see which books really grab me and do it that way. I'm just thrilled to death because I think Vertigo has traditionally always been an experimental line in comics. And I think it's one of those lines that, not just for you and me, but for a fan that maybe traditionally dismisses comics because they think it's only capes and cowls.
Yeah.
It's great to see that lineup. There's nothing cookie cutter about it. They're very unique titles. They're very experimental titles. There's ones in there like Trillium. Trillium's a definite for me. There's no way I'm not getting that. It's Lemire. He's going to do it. Home run. I'm into it. But there was a lot of other titles in that bunch where I'm like, I want to try them out at least to see, do I need to make budget changes in order to make room for some of these? Because I'm a big believer in Vertigo. I've always liked Vertigo. It's one of those books where you get, throughout the years, what has Vertigo done for me? Why the Last Man? It's done Sandman, Fables. These are huge, huge books. But then there have been smaller books like Seekers into Mystery, which I've loved. There's been so many titles. Preacher, which that's not a smaller title, but there's been so many cutting edge titles that have spun out of there. Scalped.
Yeah.
Vertigo is your cutting edge line, and I'm so glad to see that idea being reinvigorated. And even if one of these titles that I mentioned or rattled off winds up being one where budget wise I couldn't hit it at first, I'm excited for that to be collected, to hear the buzz on it and say, you know what, I've got to pick that one up and trade. I made a mistake not grabbing it. That only is going to happen if that stuff's being published. And there's a Vertigo fan who's listening to this right now who's saying, guys, I've been neglected for so long. It's finally back. I'm not that Vertigo fan, but I'm definitely more skewed in that direction out of the two of us. I think I fall somewhere in the middle of that. And, I'm really excited for these titles that are coming out, and I'm excited for the diehard Vertigo fan. I'm excited for a fan like you who might grab one or two of these in trades down the road. I think there's a lot to love out of what's coming on there.
Oh, God, yeah. And Vertigo is one of the things that does kill me, that I'm not getting some of these titles, because I really enjoy them when I'm going through. And this is the kind of the style, a lot of stories I would like, but it's... I that's why I need to hit the lottery so I can just buy everything and not have to worry about money.
Do you run into an issue?
Sell blood?
Do you run into an issue due to time though too? Because I'm finding that my problem isn't maintaining a budget, because I've gotten myself to the point where I know what my budget is, and I have a stopping point just like everybody does, and I know when to start dropping or when to say I can't try that. When I'm rattling off that Vertigo list and saying I want to try this, this, and this, I'm realizing that in order to do that, I'm going to have to cut things to try that. That month when that all starts to hit, or however those are going to be released. Because I'm assuming that they might not all be released in the same month. I should say that. They're probably going to be staggered over time. So as each of those titles are released, I'm probably going to have a certain amount of my budget set aside for new books, which means I'm going to have to do some cutting to make that happen. Cool. I'll do that. But one of the things that I've found has affected my budget as well is to try and balance out time with financial. Because I get a stockpile built up, and I've come to realize where my stockpile starts. And I've gotten really good now at determining what I can actually read in a given month. This summer's been a lot of catch up for me on titles, even in the DC universe, that I got a little bit behind on. So it made me reevaluate during this summer, what number of titles I can really realistically read in a month that will allow me to do some rereading as well. But does time make your decisions as well for you?
Yeah. Currently, my stockpile is 5 inches tall. Mm-hmm. And I've got a stack right here, and I'm looking, okay, yeah, that's how tall it is. And when we're getting ready to do our show, I look through, okay, we're talking about this. That's how I'm pulling stuff now. I want to get it to the point where I've got nothing stockpiled, but for that I need to spend, I've had a couple days these last couple weeks where all I did was just read comics. And I had a couple titles where I had multiple months worth of, stories to read. And Jonah Hex, for example, I had 5 issues of Jonah Hex that I needed to read. It's been that long since I had actually sat down and read a Jonah Hex, and I read all 5 right in a row. And I didn't read them because I didn't think it wasn't a quality. It was the fact that I always had to read this, I had to read that, and it just kept getting stackpiled and piled up, and eventually I'm like, oh crud, I got to get through this.
Well, it's one of the reasons why on the show we kind of watch ourselves on how much we do of the older material. Not because we don't want to revisit the great stories. We tend to save those for special occasions. I love doing that. The Frank Miller study that we did was terrific. But that study, when we did all that, the amount of rereading we did preparing for those deep episodes talking about all of that work meant that we were putting a lot of our current book reading on the back burner to put those episodes together, which isn't a bad thing. Great time doing all that. I loved it. I wouldn't have traded it for anything. But then, there's that trade-off of you got to come back afterwards, and I'm sure you had the same problem I did. We ran into stockpiling. So, there comes a point where you got to say, I want to save room for, and I like reading older material that I've never read before. And I know you have a stockpile of trades and hardcovers like I do.
Oh, God, yeah.
Of things that you want to read. So the question is, when do you, and that's not just DC, it's outside of DC as well. So when do you find time to do that stuff? It becomes an interesting balancing act, being a comic fan. The good news is I would rather have everything that you and I are saying than to sit there and say, boy, dude, I can't find anything to read. I can't find anything I want to read across comics. I love that there's too much product. I think that's fantastic. It's a great problem to have. This is the kind of discussion that is a comic fan's dream. When people get mad about there's too many titles, they're putting out this and that. No, what you should be mad about and worried about is if you get to the point where you say, I can only find 3 books I like. If you have that problem, then comics are really headed downhill. If you can only find out of all of comics with the entire, I'm not talking about DC, I'm talking about across comics, across it. If you can't find a nice stack, whatever your monthly budget is, and your budget might be 5 books, somebody listening to this, or 3 books, or 2 books, whatever. If you can't find quality books to fit that budget, I'm convinced you're not trying right now. This problem that you and I are talking about, we're cutting books not because we dislike them. We cut books because of time or money. That's the only reason. We're not sitting here saying man, I just cut 10 books because they stunk. Yeah. You prioritize by saying to yourself, hey, I'm focusing on this universe of characters. So, my time and my budget goes towards these characters. I just don't, otherwise I start stockpiling and I can't keep up, and that becomes a problem for me. That's a good reason to cut. I mean, in the sense that you're not cutting because you're having an awful experience. And I think that's great. And I hope everybody listening is doing that. Whatever you read, if you read one of the titles that we talk about on the show. And, everything else is something different. Maybe you're a huge Marvel fan and you listen to our podcast just because you want to see what's going on in DC. I'm hoping whatever DC title you're reading is that top of the stack read for you. I think people need to focus more on that because I get frustrated when I see crabby comic fans out there because I wish that... No, I don't wish this, but it would be interesting for my problem to be that I was dropping titles because I can't find the right titles to fit my stack. There's too much quality out there in comics right now. I just really think there is. It's very easy to jump ship on a poor title or one that's not connecting with you. You and I, throughout this episode, actually have had different ideas as far as what we like and what we don't like in directions, which, all things being equal, if we were to go through a previews catalog with that unlimited budget you were talking about, you'd still have the time problem. We would probably make a lot of titles that are the same decisions, but it would be amazing to see how many titles were different, if you know what I mean. As far as which ones we're grabbing, because previews is like a phone book. And I really feel that we're in a really great era right now.
I know the fact that, I'm like everything I'm reading, I'm enjoying.
Yeah.
I've got nothing on my plate that I'm saying, oh, this is, and when I have to pick a cut, it's hard to cut something, but, and I use different criteria than, for me, than you may use or other people may use when I have to cut a title.
Sure.
And, it's a lot of times with me when I'm cutting a title, I do look at the overall play into the DC universe. Is there Action Comics, Superman, Batman, Detective Comics, those are 4 titles that would probably always be on the pull list just because those have such a tie-in and connection to the DC universe. Same thing with Justice League. That's a title that will probably always be on my list. Just because of it's such a part of the DC universe. Then there's other titles that will always be on my list because I'm absolutely loving it. Batgirl. I'll never cut Batgirl. Why? Because it's an amazing book and I'm loving it. And it's, there's titles that, just have that passion, have that fire. Aquaman's another one. That's a title that, just because of the creative force behind it, because of what's going on, I'm digging it. I'm like, this is a title that I'm raging and I'm passionate about. But there's other titles that I'm like, okay, I can cut that. And it's tough to say that and it's tough to do that. And it is a lot of time spent just reading, and it's funny because I'm loving it as I'm reading it, but I do look at the clock going, I got to go to bed in an hour. Okay, I got enough time to read a couple comics, and then, oh, wait, I didn't do my dishes. Oh, wait, I got to do this. Oh, I forgot to do laundry. Just life gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really what you can do. It's funny, when we were speaking about budgets, one of the other, or two of the other panels I want to talk about, they had the DC Direct panel and the Sideshow Collectibles panel.
Oh, yeah.
And see, that is stuff I endlessly admire. Every so often I'll make, a decision to get a statue of some sort. When I say every so often, like once a year, I'll grab a statue to add to my collection because they're amazing. But I know there's collectors probably listening to this going, no, I tend to skew more towards, like, I try to get 2 or 3 or 4 or one a month or something like that, and I fit them into my budget. And I get why. Oh, my gosh, some of that stuff from Sideshow, like, Sideshow had that Batman bust, where it was, kind of the old school classic Batman. Then they had that really cool Sinestro statue, which looked amazing, and then the Hal Jordan bust, which looked really cool. I mean, this stuff was all gorgeous. One thing I did order, and it was actually this month, it's from DC Direct. They have the Batman Arkham Origins games coming out, and they have a Batman black and white statue based on the outfit that he's wearing in Arkham Origins.
Oh.
And it was in this month's previews. It's from DC Direct, and I looked at it and I'm like, I don't normally, and it's not it's not like a $200 statue. It was like 50 something, with the discount, because they had like a 30 something % off discount. And I'm like, I never do, I really rarely do statues because of the fact that I'm well aware that it just doesn't fit into my budget. But that one I did. And I pre-ordered it. Actually, so it's very timely that we're having this discussion. And because I was looking over the DC Direct panel, all the stuff coming up, the action figures and stuff like that. Do you get stuff like that ever? Do you save that? I know you get things at cons from time to time where you'll pick up things like that. Because, see, to me, I get stuff like that, and I think to myself, I like to get one here or there. And like I said, maybe one a year for the purpose of it being for my office/comic book room kind of thing. That's how I handle stuff like that, because I can't afford more. I really can't. And I can't afford, like, the ones that are, like, $300 and all that stuff. I just can't fit that into my budget. But I admire them, and they're gorgeous. And for the people listening to this that are collectors, oh, my gosh, you had to have been in a candy store with, the action figures and everything that are being released. They have incredible lines of figures that are, like they have figures from Suicide Squad, Capullo-based figures from, Talon, Batman, Nightwing. Arrow figures. We're going to see Oliver Queen and Deathstroke 2. They're going to be figures from that Scribblenauts Unmasked game coming out. Aquaman, Batman Bloodstorm, Green Lantern, Superman, Black Manta. You're going to get Arkham Origins figures like Batman, Black Mask, Joker, and Bane in Wave 1. Wave 2 is going to see Deathstroke and Deadshot along with others. I mean, then there's a DC Comics Bombshell line. Bombshell. It's the Bombshell line.
Hey.
The Bombshell line, which is going to be Wonder Woman and Supergirl and Poison Ivy. I mean, this is really cool. A Justice League chess set. Really cool statues. This one even sounds cool. Wonder Woman Art of War statues.
Oh, man. I'm like looking, I'm drooling, because these are things that, again, just like you, I want these. I want every one of them. And it's funny, now that I've got my own house, and I'm like, hey, I can decorate my house with nothing but DC Comics busts and pictures and posters. Oh, my. And I got to just control myself. And I know if I start buying these things, I'm going to keep buying. And then I start thinking, well, you get it now because, if you try to buy it a year from now, it'll be harder to find and prices will go up. So it's more affordable to buy it now, really. And I just got to keep control of myself and not get these. And I look at all this stuff and I love it and I want it. And, like you mentioned that chess set. I don't play chess.
Right.
I know how to play it, and I have played it, and I'm pretty bad at it, but I'm not horrible. But I want that chess set so bad. I so want a DC Universe chess set, and part of me wants to do a DC Universe on one side, Marvel Universe on the other side.
I have pieces from the Eagle Moss chess set.
Yeah.
My friend Chris Kendall started me on this, and it's really, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to complete it. I'm going to try gradually to complete it as much as I can. And if I don't complete it, I'll just be happy with the pieces that I have because it's cool so far. I have the Renee Montoya Question because this came bundled with one of the pieces for the Justice League chess set, I guess. So he gave me this one for my chess set. I got Batman and the Joker.
Oh, cool.
Which he started me off on as, they're on opposing sides.
Yeah.
So, I would love to get all of them. I don't know that that's going to be a possibility because, I got to get them every so often. I know with statues-wise, I'm looking at, I got that Arkham Origins pre-ordered. That's November's. In January, I'm going to ask for gift cards, I think, because Batman Earth 2 by Nicholas Scott.
Oh.
So I might ask for, people ask me for gifts this year, what for the Christmas holiday. I might say, please give me gift cards, please. So I can get something, treat myself to something like that because I can't fit a second statue into my budget. Not if I want to keep my comics. So, because I love the work of Nicholas Scott, and to have the statue based on her Batman, I really like that. So but see, I'm with you. I look at a lot of that stuff, and you've got to pick and choose. I would actually, I don't know if any of our listeners out there listening to this are, real diehard statue collectors. I know there's a ton of them out there, and I'm sure somebody listening to this, but if anyone wants to call in and say what kind of things they're excited, about, I can totally see how this would be. I have a drool fest. And that's not normally somewhere where I'm able to put a lot of my budget, but I like grabbing a piece here and there. I marvel at that stuff when we go to conventions. I love going to those booths and just seeing the detail.
Oh, God, yeah. You sit there and you're like, oh, man, that's awesome. And you get a nice up close to it and you can really appreciate it. And it's those things like that where I'm like, man, this would be wonderful put in my room, or put this in my living room, put this in in the war room. This would be kind of a cool piece to have in there.
Yeah, so it's an interesting choice. That's one of the things with San Diego. I love seeing this kind of stuff. It helps you kind of look at the year and kind of say, this is what's coming down the line, and these are some things I'm really going to need to think about. The one panel I'd like to wrap up talking about, Jim, because I think we really haven't had a chance to discuss this, the DC New 52 panel.
Oh, okay.
If we could talk about that one just real quickly, because it just kind of casually talked about things like Aquaman. Are you caught up on Aquaman?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, because they had that John Ostrander filled in for that Others issue, and then we got the first issue of the Returning King.
Yeah.
Which we're going to find out more about the origins of Atlantis, he said. Because he said issue number 24 marks the end of the first 2 years. And we're going to find out more about Aquaman's past, because we don't know a whole lot about that. I like that we're also finding out about Mira's.
Yes.
The stuff that has been kind of alluded to. She was sent over to kill Aquaman. Made the choice not to do that. Now we're finding out that she was betrothed to somebody else. I mean, how cool
Yeah, what the heck's going on with here?
I know. I'm excited for that, to see where that direction goes. Jeff Lemire, really excited for his work on Green Arrow, which has become a terrific book. I've loved the evolution of Green Arrow throughout its entire run, from the beginning to present day. I think it's a book that's constantly been on the climb, and where it's at now is just really amazing. His work on Green Arrow and Animal Man are just two of my favorite books right now.
Yeah, Green Arrow has been that title that it's done the roller coaster, and this is one of those things where it's a creative changes in the creative forces. Now I'm not saying any of the, when I say a roller coaster, that implies some has been not as good as others. I'm not saying anything is good or bad, or more good or more badder. I'm saying it's just because it's that long-term connection. There's that rocky road. There's that bump in the road that I got to get the groove. Now we've got a creative force that's been in a couple issues. They're going and they're building. And once again, it's back on the, that connection and that growth. And Green Arrow is definitely a solid definition of what I'm talking about, the rocky road when you change creative teams. It's never been bad, it's never been negative, but it's never been, like, again, Aquaman and Batgirl. One of the reasons those two are so, high on my list is because I love the creative teams. I love where they're going. I love the fact that everything is that continual build, that grow, and that boom, boom, boom that keeps coming down the line. When you change creative forces, you get that hiccup. You get that, okay, now we got to rebuild again. Now we got to regrow again. And it's Green Arrow is a prime example of a title that's now really starting to grow again and starting to get the connection.
We didn't talk about this. Harley Quinn's having a monthly book.
Yes.
Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor. And it's going to be Jimmy's first time writing with Amanda Connor. So I'm really excited to see Harley Quinn. Because the last Harley Quinn book that DC published was really good fun. So this is the creative team for it. I'm really liking what Palmiotti and Gray are currently doing on Batwing.
Yeah.
And All-Star Western. Jonah Hex, this fall, with it coming to your mark, Jonah Hex stuck in present day because Booster Gold dropped him off here. And he's running around now with Amadeus Arkham's great-grandson. I mean, that kind of stuff is great. It's a great way to kind of take that book and, shake it up a little bit and give us something, different to see from the title. Here's the thing. With Jonah Hex in present day, do you want to always see him stay in present day, or do you eventually want to see him go back?
I do want to see him go back to the Western because I like him in the West. Yeah. I like a Western story. Now I'm enjoying him in the present day. I like the fact that his first introduction here, he's got the punks and the thugs. Oh, what are you gonna do? He pulls out, bam, and shoots the guy. Dead. Done. I just love the fact that he's like, hey, you killed him, of course. He's the bad guy. And just then, of course, he's obviously sent to Arkham. He's locked in the insane asylum. I want to see him break out. I want to see him deal with the present day, but I do want to see him back in the Western. I do want to see him back where he quote unquote belongs, because I really enjoy Western stories. Now, I'm digging what we're getting, and I know we're going to have a fun run of him in the future, in the present day, but I do eventually, he needs to go back to the West.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'd eventually like to see him go back to the West. I'm into it right now, though. I think that's really...
Oh, definite.
With one of the other panels I wanted to talk about, Jim, was Batman Arkham Origins, the game. Because I'm really excited about this. Because this one's jumping back to the early days of Batman. So it predates the previous games. So for people who've never played any of them, you don't need to know what's going on in any of them. And Black Mask is going to be the major villain in the story. That's not going to be the only villain.
Right.
But he's going to be the main villain this time around in place of the Joker as the main villain. It's probably going to be... I'm sure the Joker's going to make an appearance. But, as a matter of fact, I'm almost positive they announced that the Joker was going to be in the game as well. But Deathstroke's going to be a playable character for those who pre-order the game, with unique movesets and gadgets in the challenge rooms, which they've done in the past. They've had, like, Nightwing and Robin be characters that you could do in the challenge rooms. But in this one, there's going to be no Robin. And actually, they just announced that there's going to be... The next fan asked Troy Baker if he's heard from Mark Hamill about his Joker. Yeah, so the Joker's definitely in the game. There's no Robin in this one because it predates Robin. But they said that doesn't mean that it predates Batgirl in this world.
Ooh.
So it'd be interesting to see Batgirl in this game.
That'd be kind of curious, because normally you'd think you'd have to have Robin and Batgirl at the same time.
Right. And it's going to have, also in this one, it's going to, because it's so early in Batman's career, Alfred is going to have some issues with what Batman's doing in his war, which is going to, fits, Alfred trying to be protective.
Right.
So I'm excited for that. It's a great game series. The first two were on my short list of favorite games of all time, and I'm really just excited for more.
One of the things that I kind of was wondering about, Vibe. Because a couple different panels he gets mentioned, and it looks like he's going to get some growth and some big pops coming up in the future.
I like what they've done with him. I like his book, and I like his role in the Justice League. And he was a character that I was like figuring, wow, does he have a limited time span? Because we've seen that with a lot of these characters that they've tried. But boy, I'm hoping that he kind of fills that role of being that newer, unique character that's kind of coming up. Because I'm digging his book a great deal.
Yeah, I tell you, when they first announced the book, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll read it. I'll be honest with you, this was one of the titles I was figuring, okay, I'll get a couple issues. If it doesn't get canceled, I'll probably drop it. But I'm really liking the story, and I'm liking him in Justice League of America. I like his dynamic that he brings to this. I want to see what happens to him with his breakout. I want to see where this character goes. I'm wondering if he's going to be one of those crossover characters that maybe shifts from one Justice League to another.
I could see that happening. My question is going to be like Adam. What is her role going to be? Is she going to switch from one team to another as well? I don't know. Vibe, you're right, could be another character that might switch teams after all this is over. I wonder who might go with Steve Trevor, though.
Yeah, it's funny because you start throwing out possibilities and changing and whatnot, but you think about Vibe's powers. He's got he and Cyborg both have connections to, the boom tubes, connections to the dark side stuff.
Gail Simone popped up on the DS in one of the panels, and she was mentioning the Batgirl Wanted storyline.
Yes.
And the idea that, Barbara's deciding whether or not to remain as Batgirl, while her father is hunting for her alter ego. Even to the point where we've seen basically Jim Gordon ask Batman
oh, God.
to, first of all, help, and then when he realized he wouldn't, stay out of my way. I'm going to be curious to see where that storyline goes. I'm really digging the drama there. I get why she feels the way she does. What a powerful moment in that story that she's had to go through there. I'm really loving that book, and the direction that Batgirl's had to go in. And I liked that when they did the Batman and Batgirl storyline in Peter Tomasi's book, that he was acknowledging what was going on with the character as well. Like, that was great from the writer as an editorial standpoint of keeping that consistency.
Well, Batgirl issue number 22 had one of my, holy crud moments for 2013. And it was the Batman and Jim Gordon confrontation when those two, when they actually had their one-on-one face-to-face. And I was just like, holy crud, this is a serious, amazing moment. And I'm going to save the spoil because I don't want to say exactly what happens between the two of them. But if you've read the issue, you know exactly the moment I'm thinking of between those two characters. That when I read it, I was like, holy crud, I can't believe that. That is awesome. And it fits all the characters and everything. It was just this great vibe and this great feel and build up to this point where it's not just about Jim Gordon taking down Batgirl. There's more ramifications behind the fact that there is a Batgirl. The fact that, Bruce allowed this girl to be this innocent girl to be in this universe. And I love the fact that you have these two characters who respect and admire each other, but they're right now on opposite sides of the fence. And you can wonder, is there going to be a confrontation? Is there going to be a reckoning? Where is this going to go, and how is this going to play out? I'm so excited to see how this comes down the line and see where this goes between Batgirl and Gordon, Bruce and Gordon, Barbara and Bruce. All these characters in this have been just an amazing, like, holy crud moment.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I felt about it. And she talked about the movement. And I like that Rainmaker.
Yeah.
Made up
from Gen 13. Made her appearance in the book as the Weather Witch. And
we're going to talk about that book next our next episode. Anyway, I'm really excited to start diving into that.
Talking the movement, big time.
Anything else you want to mention about? I mean, we kind of covered a lot of the craziness that happened in San Diego. Amazing news from the con. I like those updates on what is going on in the various series at DC. Is there anything else that we missed that you wanted to discuss that maybe I didn't get to?
I don't know. I think we got it.
Yeah, I don't know how we could have gotten much more comprehensive in our commentary on it, but big news. And I'm with our original comments that I would have loved to have seen this streamed live.
Yeah,
I would have gladly paid a ticket price to be able to watch that at home.
I would have paid the price of admission if it gives me access to these panels, and even if they it's only up there for a limited time, fine.
Yeah, like that FlipCon I was mentioning. Yeah. They give you 6 months access.
Yeah, that's plenty of time for me to see all the different panels at my leisure, and watch some of them. I probably would have watched some of them live, and who knows, maybe even put on a costume. I don't think so, but maybe I would have in the comfort of my home, in the privacy of my own home. Maybe I would put on a costume.
Right. What costume would you put on? That just dawned on me right now. I've got to ask the question. I'm going to regret asking this.
Oh, I think if I were doing it, maybe we would actually get the birth of Bridgeman. Maybe. I don't know how I would do it, but
the birth of Bridgeman.
The actual Bridgeman costume.
Holy caffeine!
I want to shout out social media, and I really love, first of all, our website, ragingbullets.com. We've got a brand new column called Direct Currents 2.0. It's been going for the last 2 weeks, and there's 2 of them up already. Jim Durden has been writing this, and it's amazingly cool. If you haven't had a chance, please go to ragingbullets.com and check it out. And I want to thank Jim for coming on board and adding that content to our website. So he's going to be doing that weekly, so please make sure to bookmark our site and check it out. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We have an amazing Facebook group. We are on Google+. Go to ragingbullets.com, link to all those things, and we love your participation in that. Our Facebook group has grown leaps and bounds beyond the show, and there's so many amazing people posting really cool things about all of pop culture, not just DC Comics. And it's really great that it's a wonderful community of people I genuinely consider friends. I love seeing what people post. And to me, a lot of times, I go there to get updated on what's going on in comics in general and pop culture. So I want to thank everyone for all the cool interactive things that they post over on our Facebook group. And please join up, sign up, and get into the conversation. It's a fun, great community. Our next episode, Jim and I are going to jump back into comic chat. We're going to be talking about Trinity War for sure. We want to talk about books like The Movement and that Green Team, Teen Trillionaires. They're newer books that have come out that we want to chat about. We're probably going to throw in some more as we get closer to the episode, but there's so much going on in Trinity War. We really wanted to do an in-depth look at what's been going on with Trinity War so far, because this is leading to big changes that are coming with the Forever Evil event right afterwards. So we want to talk about that event, and that'll be our next episode. I also want to quickly shout out the Bulleteer Hangout Google Chats. As of when this recording is going up, I've had some family things going on this week, and I haven't had a chance to sit down and edit together the Google Chats that have been sent to me. But I've got 2 Google Chats that are ready to go up. As of when I'm doing this recording, within 2 days, they should be up. This weekend is one of my goals, is to get those Google Chats up and posted so you guys can enjoy them. So I just want to thank the whole group of people that have been meeting and doing these really cool, they're called Bulleteer Hangouts, and I just think it's really great that they're being held. Our listeners are meeting, hanging out, chatting comics, games, pop culture, everything relating to this wonderful world of comic and pop culture medium that we all love and enjoy. We will see everyone next episode.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and loss and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thenin guard or Egyptian, working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call